Muy buenos días,
good
sean
morning.
todas bienvenidas, cada uno de
Welcome
ustedes
you all.
bienvenidos a
Welcome
esta
everyone to
sexta
this
versión
sixth
del Encuentro
version
Imagen de
of the
Chile que hemos
Chile's
llamado
Image
el poder del place
meeting
branding.
called The
Queremos
Power of
agradecer la
Place
presencia de
Branding.
cada uno de
We'd like
ustedes esta
to
mañana aquí en el
appreciate,
GAM, así como
to
aquellos
thank
que
your
nos siguen vía
presence
streaming a través
for
de
all of you
distintos
who are
rincones
here
de
and
nuestro
also
país
those
y
who are
del
joining
mundo.
us from the
Muchísimas
streaming
gracias por estar con
broadcast.
nosotros.
Thank you very much
2024 la
for
Fundación
joining us.
cumple 15 años de
2024
vida.
will be
Son
15
15 años
years old. 15
trabajando
years
por
old where
promover una
we've been
imagen
working to
positiva de
promote a
Chile en el
positive image
mundo,
of Chile
con
in the
resultados que son
world, with
destacados
results that
internacionalmente.
are
A partir del
standard
año pasado, la Fundación
internationally.
está
As of
implementando
last
una
year, the
innovadora
foundation is
estrategia de
implementing
Marca
an
Chile
innovative
que combina el place
strategy of
branding, la diplomacia
Chile's brand,
pública y las
place
últimas
branding,
tendencias en el mundo. Se
diplomacy,
trata
and the
de
last
que
trends in the world
todos,
are all
actores
mixed. It
públicos y
means that all
privados,
stakeholders,
cada uno
private
desde su ámbito de acción
and public,
específico,
from their
aportemos a
own
la
area of
construcción
action,
de la
can
imagen
contribute to
país,
the construction
compartiendo
of
una
the
visión
country
común de lo
image
que somos
by
ante el
sharing a
mundo,
common vision of
un
what
país
we are
que
before the
propone,
world, a
que
country
construye
proposing,
y que cumple.
building,
En este
and
escenario, la
compliant. In
Fundación
this
Imagen de
scenario, the
Chile ha jugado
Foundation
un rol
Imagen de Chile
articulador,
has played an
creando espacios de
articulating role by
conversaciones que nos
creating
permitan
spaces and
hablarles al
conversations,
mundo con
allowing
una
us to
sola
talk to the
voz.
world with just
Porque la
one
imagen de
voice,
Chile la
because the
construimos
Chile's
entre
voice
todas
can be
y
built
todos,
or is built
también contigo.
among everyone, and also
Los
with
invito
you.
a que durante toda esta
Please
jornada
be
compartan
invited
y participen
to
en
share
redes
and
sociales con el
participate in
hashtag
social network with the
Chile lo
hashtag
hacemos todos.
Chile lo hacemos
Chile lo hacemos
todos.
todos.
Chile lo
Queremos
hacemos
saludar y
todos.
agradecer la presencia
We'd
de
like
las
to once
autoridades que nos
more
acompañan
thank the
esta mañana.
authorities
Al
with
señor
us
ministro de
today,
Relaciones
the Minister
Exteriores,
of Foreign
Alberto Van
Affairs,
Claveren,
Alberto Van
al señor
Claveren,
embajador de
the
Guatemala en
Ambassador of
Chile,
Guatemala in
Wendel
Chile,
Arriaza,
Wendel
al señor
Arriaza,
embajador de Panamá,
the
Mario
Ambassador of
Velázquez,
Panama,
a
Mario
la señora
Velázquez,
subsecretaria de Turismo, Verónica Pardo,
and the
a la
Secretary of
señora directora
Tourism,
internacional de
the
Pro Chile,
International Director
Natalia
of Pro Chile,
Arcos.
Natalia
De igual
Arcos.
manera, queremos saludar al presidente
Likewise,
del
we'd
Consejo
like
Exportador de
to
Alimentos, Claudio
greet
Chilvetti.
Food
Un
Expo
saludo muy
President.
especial, además,
A
a los
very
representantes del
special greeting
Consejo
to the
Iberoamericano de
representatives of the
Marcas de
Ibero-American
Chile,
Council of
CIMAP, que
Brands
Chile
Chile,
tiene el honor
CIMAP.
de presidir este año y que nos
Chile
hemos estado
chairs
viendo
this year.
o nos
It
están
has the
viendo de
honor
toda
to chair this
Iberoamérica,
year.
con quienes nos hemos
Everyone
reunido
from Latin
varias veces de
America
manera
is watching
presencial,
us, and
así
we
como
have
también de
met them
manera online.
both
Saludamos,
in
por supuesto, a
person
nuestra
and
directora
virtually.
ejecutiva,
Our
Rosana
executive
Bresner,
director,
y
please
la presencia de
welcome
los
and the
emprendedores
presence of the
licenciatarios de Marca
entrepreneurs
Chile,
of
que desde
Marca
distintas
Chile
áreas cuidan
from
y
different
promueven la
areas they
imagen de nuestro
care
país
for
por
and
el
promote
mundo.
the image of
A fin
Chile
de dar inicio
around the
formal a este
world.
encuentro, quiero invitar a
To
este
kick
escenario al
off, I would
señor
like to
presidente,
invite
el
the
director de la
President
Fundación
of the
Imagen de
Board
Chile,
of
el
Imagen de
ministro de
Chile,
Relaciones Alberto
the
Van Claveren,
Minister
a
of
quien
Foreign
pido
Affairs,
recibamos con
Alfredo
un gran
Bacani.
aplauso.
Please, big round of applause for him.
Tengan todas y todos ustedes muy buenos días.
Good morning, everyone.
Señora subsecretaria de
Miss
Turismo, Verónica
and the
Pardo.
Secretary of Tourism,
Señora
Verónica
directora
Parda,
ejecutiva de
Executive
Imagen de
Director of
Chile,
Imagen de
Rosana
Chile,
Dresner.
Rosana Dresner,
Señora directora internacional
International
de Pro Chile,
Director of Pro
Natalia
Chile,
Arcos.
Natalia
Señor
Arcos,
presidente del Consejo
President
Exportador
of the
de Alimentos,
Exporting
Claudio
Council,
Silvetti.
Food Exporting Council, Claudio Silvetti,
Invitadas e invitados especiales.
special
Un saludo
guests,
especial para Simon Anholt,
special greeting for Simon Anhold,
gran estudioso del tema de las marcas a nivel
a
internacional.
specialist in branding,
Otro
in
saludo
brands
para
internationally.
los embajadores
One more greeting
que nos
for the
acompañan
ambassadors joining us
de
today
Guatemala,
from
de
Guatemala
Panamá,
and Panama,
y también representantes del cuerpo
and of course,
diplomático
representatives of the
acreditado
diplomatic
en Chile.
body accredited in Chile.
Y un saludo para todas y todos ustedes. También
And
para
a greeting
quienes
for
nos
all of
siguen
you,
por
as well as
streaming.
those who are joining
Más de
us from the
200
streaming. More
personas
than
que están
200 people
siguiendo
who are
este
virtually
evento.
connected on this
Amigas
event.
y amigos,
Dear friends,
Chile se encuentra inserto en un mundo
Chile is
marcado
part
por
of the
la
world
incertidumbre
marked by the
en
uncertainty
distintas
in
dimensiones,
different dimensions,
así como por un proceso de
as
cambio
well
que
as a
queda
changing
extremadamente
process
acelerado.
extremely accelerated.
En este contexto, nuestro país
Under
realiza un
this
trabajo
context,
constante
Chile does
para
a
reforzar los
constant
vínculos
work
que
to
tenemos
reinforce
con
the
otras
bonds, the links
naciones,
we have with other
especialmente
nations,
aquellas que
particularly
comparten
those nations who
nuestros
share
principios,
our
nuestros
principles,
objetivos,
our
también
goals,
nuestras
and of course,
perspectivas de
our
desarrollo.
development
A la vez,
perspective.
también buscamos
In parallel, we
activamente
also actively
nuevas áreas
pursue
de cooperación,
new cooperation areas,
tanto con países como con
both
actores
with countries
relevantes
as well as with
dentro de los
relevant
países.
stakeholders within the countries.
Para tener éxito en esta empresa,
To be
la
successful in
construcción
this
y
undertaking,
proyección de
construction
la
and
imagen país
projection of the country
emerge
image
como uno de los factores
emerges
fundamentales
as one
para
of the key
respaldar
or
nuestra
fundamental
promoción,
actors to promote
representación y
our
presencia en
representation,
el ámbito
presence
internacional.
in the international
La
scope.
imagen de Chile
Chile's
no solo
image
se basa en nuestras fortalezas
not only
económicas,
based on our
culturales
economic,
y
cultural,
geográficas,
and geographic
sino
strength,
también
but
en los
also
valores que
in the
sostenemos
values
como nación.
we have as a nation.
La defensa de la democracia,
Democracy,
el Estado de
advocacy,
Derecho,
rule of
el
law,
respeto al derecho
the
internacional,
respect to international
los
law,
derechos humanos,
human rights,
el multilateralismo,
multilateralism,
el libre comercio,
free
son
trade,
todos pilares
they are
que forjan
all
nuestra
fundamental pillars
identidad
forging
internacional.
our international
Y
identity.
también son elementos con los
And they are
cuales
also
fortalecemos
elements
nuestra
to
presencia
reinforce
en el
our
mundo.
presence in the world.
Y estos principios no surgen
And these
solamente a
principles
raíz de la
not only
construcción
emerge
histórica,
based on the
como nación,
historical construction
sino
as
que
a nation,
también
but
encierran nuestras aspiraciones
they
y nuestra
represent
visión
our
de futuro.
aspirations and our vision
En
for
este
future.
esfuerzo por fortalecer
In
nuestra
this
proyección
effort
internacional,
to
la
reinforce
Fundación
our
Imagen de
international
Chile
projection, the
desempeña un
Foundation
papel
Imagen de
importante
Chile plays an important
integrando
role
distintos
by
sectores de la
integrating
sociedad
different
para
sectors of the
construir una
society
imagen
to
país
build a
transversal
country
y
image,
unitaria,
a
con
unique
visión de
and
Estado.
transversal
Esto quiere
vision
decir
with a
que
vision
su
for
misión
state.
trasciende
It
el
means that
trabajo
its
de un
vision goes
gobierno
beyond
o
the
de
work of a
sectores
government
específicos,
or some
sino
specific
que busca
sectors.
impulsar la construcción de una
Instead,
narrativa nacional
it
colectiva
wants to look for
que involucre
an account, an
a la amplia
international
variedad
account
de personas
involving the
y grupos
broad
que
variety
componen
of
nuestra
people
sociedad.
and groups being
El
part of
objetivo
our
es
society.
que todas
The
las
main goal is
chilenas
that all
y
Chileans
se sientan parte de este proyecto
feel
para
part of
así
this
sumar
project
fuerzas en la promoción de
to
Chile
add
en
forces in
distintas
Chile's
instancias
promotion in different
internacionales.
international instances.
Esto sigue la línea de una de las principales
This is under the
características del
framework of
quehacer
one
de
of the
nuestro
main
país en el
characteristics of
escenario
our daily
global.
activities in our country in
Chile
the
ha
global
demostrado
scenario.
ser un actor
Chile has
coherente y
proven to be a
comprometido
coherent
en la escena
and committed
internacional.
actor in the international
Los
scene.
elementos tradicionales de
The
su
traditional
política
elements
exterior,
of its
como
foreign
la
policy,
defensa
such
de la
as the
democracia
advocacy of
y el libre
democracy,
comercio,
the free
se
trade,
combinan ahora con
are
nuevos
mixed
enfoques,
nowadays with
como
new
la igualdad de
approaches,
género,
such as the
el
gender
desarrollo
equality,
sustentable
sustainable
y la
development,
protección del medio
and the
ambiente
environment
y los
protection
océanos.
and the
Estos valores
oceans.
refuerzan la imagen de
These
Chile
values
como un
reinforce
país
Chile's
moderno,
image as a modern
inclusivo,
country, as an
comprometido
inclusive
con los
and
desafíos
committed, a
globales,
country
en
committed
que
with
se
global
combinan de
challenges,
manera que esperamos virtuosa,
where
continuidad
they
y
can
cambio.
be mixed with continuity and
Durante el
change.
último año, nuestros
During
esfuerzos
the
han
last year,
concentrado
our
tanto en el
efforts have been
fortalecimiento y
focused in the
diversificación
strengthening
de
and
nuestras relaciones con
diversifications of our
países y
relations
bloques
with blocs and
históricamente
countries
importantes,
historically
como en
important,
reforzar los lazos
such as
con nuestros
reinforcing the
vecinos
bonds
y
with
la
our
integración regional.
neighbors and the
Por otra
regional
parte,
integration.
Chile se ha
On the other hand,
mantenido firme en la
Chile
defensa
has
de
been
los
solid
derechos humanos
when
en
it
el
comes
ámbito
to
internacional.
defend or to be
Y
an
asimismo,
advocate
una
for
política
human
exterior
rights in the international
feminista
scenario,
y
as well as a
turquesa, orientada
feminist
hacia la inclusión de
policy
la perspectiva de
targeted
género
toward the
y la
gender
lucha
perspective
contra la
inclusion
crisis climática
and the fight
constituyen
against climate
ejemplos
crisis
concretos del
are
compromiso
concrete
de nuestro
examples of
país
our
con los
commitment
problemas
to
contemporáneos.
the contemporary
Todo lo
problems.
anterior
The
constituyen
aforesaid
elementos
is
que, sin
part
ser
of an
exhaustivo,
element that,
resulta
without being
fundamentales de
exhaustive,
destacar respecto
are fundamental to highlight when it comes to refer to our country and its acting in the international arena. Within these positive aspects, they will find the proper reflection of the country image we want to project, the proper management, the strengthening of links of bonds, the strengthening of feminist and ecological policies, as well as the integrated strategy for the economic development should be visible elements contributing for the construction of a positive and modern image. In this process, the active participation of society, public and private sectors, is crucial. The country's image is not only responsibility by authorities and government organs. It is built among everyone, each citizen, from their own role in action, scope, can contribute for the strengthening of the national identity and the projection of a strong and positive image in the international arena. The Chile's country's image is a valuable asset requiring a joint and coordinated effort. The Foundation image of Chile, when integrating different areas from our society in these tasks, pursues to consolidate a cross-sectional narrative representing the diversity and strength of our nation. In a world where change is ongoing, in that world, the vision of our country is fundamental to show, to prove not only their achievements and potentiality, but at the same time, their commitments and values with a sustainable and equitable development. The construction of this image is a collective task. It reflects who we are, and it also reflects the contribution we want to make to the world. Everyone is invited not only to think of the country as a brand, but also to think of the country or to think how to live our brand under the framework of our country. Thank you very much. We thank the kick-off words by Alberto Bencamer. Now, Rosana Dresner, Executive Director of Imagen de Chile, the host of this event. She will also give us his opening remarks.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to see this audience, this big audience. Many friends we have worked in the past. Almost a year ago, in the same place where we are all gathered today, the Foundation presented their work, but also presented, and above all, presented a new perspective of what we wanted to print in our management. 1 year ago, we summarized in a phrase that crossed that encounter, which is the phrase you can see at the background. The Chile's image is built by all of us. That has crossed and been beyond everything we have done before. And we cannot be more proud of what we've done before. And I personally feel proud, and not only as an organization, but also I take pride due to the work we have done with the organizations we have been working with in the previous year. Many of those organizations are here, some of them in person, some others virtually. Somehow, we feel that we have made progress in understanding that the construction of a country image is everyone's task, is a state mission. 2023 was a great effort year, a year where we stood up and showed the world what we are and what we can do. We are capable of working together and being committed as a country. We are capable to look at uncertainty, difficulties, and obstacles. And we are also capable to assume those, to take charge. As I said, our campaign launch today, we care. We work pretty convinced. We want to be trustworthy. We wanted to show that we are a country that can offer certainties and in an uncertain international scenario can look at the future with perspective in a bold manner and also with innovative answers that beyond our frontiers can also contribute for the construction of a better world. For the Foundation Imagen de Chile, whose mission is to tell the world who we are and what we are like, 2023 was a crucial year because we turned considerably. We marked two paths. In first place, we decided that we want and we have to show the world not only our competitive edges, our attractions, commercial attractions, and our strengths, but also our values, in what we believe and what we defend as a country. In second place, because we are starting to foster our brand based on collaboration and joint construction of our actions among everyone who talk about Chile in the world. As a Foundation Imagen de Chile, we have assumed the articulating role of those sectors targeted with this premise of the Chile can be built by everyone. This twist has meant making changes in our way of working internally and in the definition of our priorities and in the relation with our main allies. We had to make efforts to generate new bonds, trusts, and partnerships, and being capable of to listen and understand how, in actions, in facts, the country can be expressed in different institutions as sectors, private, public, smaller, bigger, and how it is possible to coordinate everything and give it pertinence. We created not only conversation, but also concrete spaces for the broad exchange, a real and efficient exchange among the representatives of those areas, along with their authorities and their teams. All united have structured a working strategy based on 4 pillars. In first instance, the articulating role for our image in the world. In second place, an authentic history, a believable history and account based on actual information, supported and backing everything we tell the world. An account making sense to everyone, where everyone can applied in their respective authorities, a simple but profound account, new but real account, picking, collecting what we are, our challenges, and what we dream of when it comes to constructing the future. In third place, we propose the 3 axes of these accounts, cross-sectional to all sectors, and they talk not only about our strength, but also of what we are, our way of being a country. These facts are sustainability in a sustainable model in economics and environment. In other words, a development race, democracy based on people's respect and stability of our institutions and regulations, diversity reflected in our identity as a country, as a culture, in our geography, as well in our worlds offered. The 4th pillar of our strategy are the concrete spaces of joint work with our institutions, with other institutions, clearly expressed in the international events and in that working techniques with the main stakeholders. This 2024 event, we have around 30 ongoing projects to be developed. Only 5 are for internal development and has to do with the foundation strengthening. 25 projects are being and will be developed jointly with our stakeholders. This is the way we face in front of everyone with the Imagen de Chile Foundation. From the beginning of the world and from this country, and I quote the President Lagos, the former President Lagos, probably it won't be a powered but We are all working in that. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much, Minister, for joining us. Thank you to all authorities. And thank you, dear team, for working fully committed, professionalism. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these words. We are happy of the presence of everyone here this morning. But, of course, some people couldn't make it. Some authorities couldn't. They are working for Chile's image abroad. It was impossible to attend. But they didn't want to be absent from this, and they have sent us their messages. Hello everyone, my name is Carolina Redondo Marzán, Minister of Culture, Art and Heritage. Unfortunately, I won't be here with you in this Imagen Chile Encuentro 2024. However, through this message, I would like to express the positioning of Chile in the world is the result of everyone. Particularly in the art, culture, and heritage, where we can reflect and build the image of a country contributing for solutions and answers to most of the most relevant challenges we face as humanity. Please receive this greeting and let's have a fruitful meeting. Hello! Unfortunately, I couldn't make it with you there to be with you in this annual meeting of Imagen de Chile Foundation. They play a key role in the country to foster from what's public and private, what we are in our country, to abroad. From here, we are glad, we are happy with the work projecting our image and our international prestige. Welcome to this meeting. Let's have a fruitful session and let's keep on working together in fostering, promoting the image of our country. Hello, my name is Claudia Sangüesa. I'm the Secretary of Economic International Relations from the Chile's government. Please receive this warm greeting to the foundation and the director Rosana Dreisler, a foundation in charge of disseminating our image and our economic, social, and cultural development to the rest of the world. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there with you. I'm in the United States right now, precisely in a meeting of the OAS, which is a meeting on how to promote the SMEs, as well as many public institutions. We are in charge of disseminating, and we are a link with the world from our country, and this is why we have to support and greet the Foundation Imagen de Chile, invite you to greet in cooperation so that we can all position our country and disseminate what we are doing. I believe that this is today's challenge, to talk, to open a dialogue and be in contact with the world. Have a wonderful session today. We thank the messages by the Minister Carolina Redondo and the Secretary Gloria de la Fuente and Claudia Sangüesa. The creation of the brand of a country, and particularly of a country's image, is a long-standing process, complex process. There's no recipes for that. It's a process where each country have to find its own path based on their history, identity, the way of doing things, and their proposals to the world. Countries are judged by what they do or how they behave, not by what they say. That phrase has been said by our first speaker, recognized as the main authority in place branding. He has worked with state heads for more than 70 countries in strategy to improve the economic, political, and cultural development by contributing for nations to be involved imaginatively, strategically with the international community. He's authored of the Wood Country Index, a ranking that as of 2024 values or scores the contribution to each country for the planet. We talked about Simon and Holt. He has worked from
hoy sobre los factores que
abroad
influyen
to
en las
talk
percepciones de una marca
about
país,
the factors
el
having an
impacto que
influence
una
and an
estrategia de
impact
imagen
of
país
an
puede
image
tener en la
strategy can
economía y el
have in
desarrollo,
economy and
y de los
development,
esfuerzos que
and
hoy
of
se están
course about
haciendo en
the
el mundo para
efforts being
cuantificar
in the
este
world to
impacto.
quantify this
Les
impact.
recordamos que su presentación será en
His
inglés, para lo
presentation
cual
will be
tenemos
in
disponible
English.
un servicio
We
de
have
traducción
simultaneous
simultánea.
interpretation
Sin más,
service
le damos la
available.
bienvenida a nuestro
Without
primer
further ado,
speaker.
let's welcome our
Simon.
first speaker,
Lo
Simon
recibimos con un gran
Anholt.
aplauso.
Big round of applause for him.
Good morning, everybody. And let me start by saying thank you. Normally, you say thank you at the end. I want to say thank you at the beginning for two reasons. One, for allowing me to speak to you in my own language. Really, this is a piece of kindness on my part, because you really would not want to hear me doing this in Spanish, I promise you. But thank you for paying attention. And the other reason I wanted to thank you is for inviting me to Chile. I really am a big fan of Chile. I've been here many, many times before. To be able to come here again and to speak about my favorite subject is genuinely a pleasure. I love this subject. I never get tired of it. I am a person who is by nature easily distracted. And as any of you who've read any of my work will know, I have a distressing tendency to change my mind about things constantly. But the one thing I've really never changed my mind about is how fascinating this topic really is. This is almost the only thing in my life, apart from my marriage, of course, that I've stuck to for 25 years or more. And the reason I stick to it is because it is the most fascinating topic. And I'm sure that most of you will agree with me there. In a sense, place branding, and we'll talk about the vocabulary in a moment, place branding is fascinating because it's the everything subject. It touches on so many areas. And I certainly didn't anticipate this when I started becoming interested in the topic way back in the 1990s. I thought it was something to do with marketing and something to do with politics. And so immediately I was interested because that's a strange and fascinating combination. What I didn't realize was that for the next 25 years, I was going to be learning much more than I teach. And this is a terrible thing to admit, because I should have been paying the governments who I worked with. They shouldn't have been paying me. And what I've done over the last 25 years is I've had the opportunity to learn a lot about anthropology, geopolitics, macroeconomics, history, of course, sociology, statistical science, because I have a bit of a thing about data. I'll talk about that later on as well. It really is the everything subject, and anybody who thinks that it's a narrow discipline needs to look again, because it's one of the widest disciplines in the world. And that's what makes it so thrilling, and that's why still today, after more than 25 years, if somebody invites me to stand on a stage and talk about my favorite topic, I say yes before they've even finished the question, because I love it. And I'm sure that most of you do as well. But there's another thing that I have to say about this topic, and that is that it's a new topic still. It's only been around for 25 or 30 years, but it's still very new. It still has all the signs of newness. And the principal sign of its newness is a total confusion about what it is and why it exists and how it works. My colleague Robert Govitz, who you're going to hear from tomorrow, and I have between us worked in nearly 70 countries. Every country we've been to, they have a different interpretation of this topic and these phrases. Most of them, I find it difficult to agree. Some of them, perhaps 20, 25%, I find it all too easy to agree with their perspective. There are as many different interpretations of place branding as there are places, thousands upon thousands. And in some ways, the idea of a single robust theory of place brand may be a bad idea. Because if we end up with a single simple recipe of what works for countries, we run the risk of not allowing for the massive differences that there are between states. They are so different. They are intrinsically, fundamentally, importantly different. That's the reason why I enjoy being a human being, living on planet Earth, because we have these wonderful things called nations. Maybe we won't have them forever. Maybe one day, even soon, we'll go back to having principalities or city-states. Maybe we're heading towards total anarchy. Who knows? These are fascinating times to live in. Never has the future felt so uncertain. It's always been uncertain, of course, but it's never felt so uncertain. And it's that massive diversity between states, and above all between the cultures of the populations of those states, that make this basically such a fascinating topic. But this is the reason why I'm going to start with the basics. And forgive me, you people gathered here together, you know a lot about this subject. Collectively, you know far more about it than I do. But the reason I'm going to start at the basics is because it is still an open discipline. It's still unfinished. It's still uncertain. It still could go in many directions and does go in many directions. So we, who work in this area, must continue to repeat and rehearse the basic stories. Like when you're inventing a new religion, like when you're inventing a new science or a new society, you have to repeat the basics until they become tested and agreed on. So here's my simple story, my origin myth. We live and have lived for more than 100 years in an intensely globalized world, where the things we buy, the people we meet, the organizations we follow, the messages we listen to could come from almost anywhere. This, I think, is a necessary stage in the evolution of humanity. Globalization could never have not happened. Globalization has been the instinct of humanity ever since we walked out of Africa thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago. When we stopped being a single tribe, facing a single set of problems, and walked away from the Great Rift Valley and started becoming many peoples, the story of humanity since then has been a story of us trying to get back together again. All the scientific advances, all the political developments, all the philosophies in the world that there have ever been or there ever could be contain something of that DNA in them. It's about missing that moment in our early history when we were a single tribe facing a single set of problems. Now, I meet a lot of racists. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy my job so much. It's fascinating to hear people whose worldviews are so different from your own and trying to understand them, trying to understand what it feels like to hold views that are so different from your own. And most of these people are not mad. Some of them are. Most of them are not stupid. Some of them are. But all of them are just very different. And spending time with them, you begin to understand that deep down inside, we still have a sensation of being one species living on one planet. And globalization in the modern age, 20th and 21st century globalization, has been our very imperfect attempt to use technology to bring us back together again. And the extraordinary thing is that it has succeeded. Despite everything that's going on in the world today, 2024 is a year when we are, once again, a single tribe inhabiting a single planet, facing a single set of common problems, just like way back in Africa, all those tens of thousands of years ago. The only difference is that this time we've created all the problems ourselves. So we should be sincerely proud of that achievement. Note to interpreter, British irony. But that is where we are today. And that's why place branding and all of the interrelated disciplines are not a choice. They are not an option. Even if it looks as if globalization may be going in reverse slightly at the moment, and in some respects it is, we cannot escape the fact that our problems are shared, and therefore the solutions must be shared as well. One of the biggest problems of the 20th century and the mess that we've got ourselves into is, in my opinion, the SWOT chart, S-W-O-T. In English we call it SWOT, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. This has been one of the most influential models in modern business studies for a very, very long time. And on the surface, it appears perfectly logical. If you're planning, if you're strategizing for a company or even a government, of course, that's what you need to look at. You look at your strengths, what are we good at? Your weaknesses, what are we bad at? Opportunities, where could we make some money or achieve some power? And threats, what are the things that stand in our way? And it looks like a very complete model. You look at SWOT and you say, my goodness, that's everything. If we complete that chart and we know our S, we know our W, we know our O, we know our T, then we've fixed it. And it has been tremendously effective for a very large number of companies. The trouble is, there's a letter that's missing from SWOT. And in some respects, it's the most important letter of all. And the letter is R. And R stands for responsibilities. That's the thing we forgot. So Robert and I often talk about having a SWOT chart, which is a very inelegant word, but it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, responsibilities, and threats. And the reason why it's essential to consider responsibilities is because you are a sovereign state and you inhabit a position on the planet. You are part of humanity. You cannot escape your responsibilities. Now, I don't talk about responsibilities because I think we all want to go to heaven. Not because it's morally good, although it is morally good, and that's not to be excluded, but mainly because it's strategically useful. It makes more strategic sense. If you inhabit a planet shared with 199 or 204 other countries, you have to consider your responsibilities to the whole, otherwise what you do is, by definition, unsustainable. It cannot be sustained. But the other thing that's not particularly moral about SWOT is that it's more stimulating, it's more creative. If you're talking about the future of the country in the world, and you're also considering what are our obligations to the planet, what are our obligations to humanity, you're not doing that because you want to go to heaven. You're doing that because it is a more creative way of strategizing. It's a more useful way of looking at the future because it brings up more fresh ideas in your strategic process than you would have without it. There's something very one-dimensional and very sad and very boring about SWOT. Why? Because its religion is competition. And competition is a very boring religion. I would not sign up to the religion of competition because it's so tedious. We do better than you, therefore we're better than you. Is that a good story? America first. America first. Is that a good story? Well, in one respect, it's stupid of me to criticize Donald Trump because, of course, when he says America first, it's perfectly obvious. As Homer Simpson would say, duh. If you're the president of the United States of America or the president of anywhere, of course your primary responsibility is towards your own citizens. That's your democratic responsibility. That's what you've been elected to do. But what is so disappointing about the Trump dogma, unless I've misunderstood him very badly, in which case I apologize, is the notion that America first means everybody else comes last. And this is where I disagree. This is where I think that the religion of competitiveness falls down because it's so sad, it's so boring, it's so predictable. We come first, so you come last. We don't live in 155 planets. We live on one planet. And if anybody comes last, that's the end for all of us. We must all come first. And that's why I don't want to get into politics here, but one of the reasons why I find it particularly sad to hear a president of the United States, an ex-president of the United States, talking about America first, is because America, of all countries, the United States was the country that over history has done more than any other to demonstrate that it is in your interest to come first whilst helping other countries to try to come first too. The rising tide that lifts all ships. The more of that you do, the more you succeed. Pushing others down does not push you up. Pulling everybody up pushes you up. And all of the research that we've done over the years shows very clearly one simple fact about place brand. If you want to be admired, You must be admirable. I'm almost embarrassed to say that phrase because it's so obvious, and yet it is so often ignored. Too much place branding, and I'm not talking about any particular countries here, I'm really not, but too much of it is bragging, it's showing off. It's saying, we have these assets, we have these achievements, we have this natural beauty, we've done this, we've done that. Now, what is that going to make other people think? It's going to make them feel bad, right? They're going to think, why doesn't my country have all of that? It's divisive. I would like to know who it was who decided that place branding had to be a competitive activity. It wasn't me. I don't think I ever said that. I don't see any reason why place branding should not be fundamentally collaborative. And I'm delighted to see representatives of other governments, for example, at this conference. It's a sign that this is something we can and should do together. Why? Because the age we live in is full of gigantic global challenges, like poverty, inequality, conflict, climate change, and all the rest of it. By definition, none of those problems can be resolved by any single country working on its own. We can only resolve them by working together. And by branding ourselves and others and working together, not to make ourselves look better, but to provide a good example to the rest of the planet, it's a necessity. And this is one of the many areas why place branding as a theory, as an area, as a field of study, is still so fresh after 25 years. Because there are so many areas, so many concepts, so many directions which have never yet been explored. It's like being in the middle of a jungle. Sometimes you feel you just don't know which way to go, and you can even feel trapped. But actually, the reality is you can go wherever you like, as long as you have a machete. And the machete, of course, is the intellect and the team and the desire to go forwards. And this in particular is one area where I have, as far as I'm aware, I've never seen another country really explore the possibility of mutual, collaborative, multilateral public diplomacy or place branding. Why not? Entrepreneurial multilateralism is the name I give to this. It's a horrible expression. It's almost impossible for me to say it even in my own language. As for typing it, forget it. But entrepreneurial multilateralism is what countries need to do in the 21st century. They need to take an entrepreneurial approach to working together with other countries and fixing our shared problems, so that in doing so, we fix our own problems. And in fixing our own problems and the world's problems, we fix our image. We become admired because we are admirable. And for me, that is the fundamental principle of place branding. So, going once again back to the beginning, as you may know, I'm often accused of being the person who invented the term place branding or country branding or nation branding. I deny it. You can check. The paper that I wrote back in whenever it was, 1998 I think, I did not use the phrase nation branding. The phrase I maybe used, I think, I haven't been back to look at that paper because it was so bad and it embarrasses me, but I think that the phrase possibly I used was nation brand. Now, you may well say, what difference can 3 letters make? Brand, branding, they make a big difference. Because nation brand is just a simple observation. That's all I was making. I was just saying, in the 21st century, although it was actually the 20th century then, a country's image is very important to its progress and its prosperity, because we live in an intensely advanced, globalized global society where image counts more than reality. Isn't that has an awful sound to it? It sounds so superficial, doesn't it? We live in an age where what people believe, their prejudices, their ignorance, carry more weight than their knowledge, their science, the facts. And this has always been one of the tensions at the heart of the discipline. A lot of politicians in particular, who are brought up in a school of hard, measurable facts, find the idea of branding slightly disturbing, rather superficial. We're looking at the surface, we're not looking at what lies underneath. And in a sense, they are absolutely correct. But in another more important sense, they have to think again, because whether we like it or not, that is the world we live in. A globalized world is a world that is very big. By definition, it is a world that very few people can understand fully. How many of us really know about another country? Really know? The research suggests that most of us only really know one or two other countries at all well. Its history, its geography, its culture, and so forth. Now, last time I checked, there were about 205 countries on the planet. What does that mean? That means that to all intents and purposes, for the majority of the human race, the vast majority of countries simply do not exist, except in the form of a prejudice. A vague idea we have in our head that France is kind of chic, that Switzerland is kind of precise and rich and secretive, that America is kind of fat. I love America. That Britain is kind of posh and arrogant and old-fashioned and basically a loser. That one's correct. And that the Italians are sexy. You know the kind of thing I'm talking about. Well, whether we like it or not, whether or not we think that's superficial, that is, in those prejudices, are written the destiny of our planet and our global society. Because that's what people believe. And if that's what people believe, that becomes the truth. Because in the hands and in the behaviors of billions and billions of citizens, driven by their prejudices and their beliefs, lie the fate of nations. If I believe that Italy is sexy, I'm going to buy more Italian clothes. If I believe that Switzerland is more precise, I'm more likely to invest in Switzerland because I know I'll get my money back with profits and they won't steal it, I hope. These prejudices are superficial, but precisely because they're there, they are the things that we have to be concerned with. I once said something along these lines. I said, there is only one superpower left on the planet, and that superpower is international public opinion. And we are, all of us, in our different ways, trying to do diplomacy with that superpower. But the superpower is not smart, and it's certainly not very wise. The superpower has a mental age of about 7.5. I know this because I measured it. I tried to do a study once to try and estimate the mental age of humanity on average. I don't think it was a very good piece of statistical analysis, but it was interesting. And I came to the conclusion that the average age of humanity en masse is about 7.5. Now, that's not me trying to insult the human race, but it's a very interesting thought, isn't it? That the people out there that we're dealing with, whose views and prejudices and opinions shape our nation and shape the world that we live in, it's a toddler. It's a 7.5-year-old. And that is actually immensely liberating and very important, because it means that when we are discussing these things, when we're discussing place branding, we have to remember the 7.5-year-old. Not, by the way, if what we're talking about is trade promotion or export promotion or any of these business-to-business activities where we are most certainly dealing with adults. But in terms of the overall image of the country, the general population, the question we always have to ask, and we have to remember to ask it, and we have to be boring in meetings, constantly reminding each other of it, would a 7.5-year-old with an attention span deficit be interested in that? Does it pass the 7-year-old test? Because if it doesn't, you're wasting your time. That is the collective impact of the human race and its psychology upon each other. More importantly, would a 7-year-old, a 7.5-year-old, after hearing what you've just said, want to go and tell her friends about it? If you can find something, do something, that a 7.5-year-old would not only understand, be interested in, and want to run off and tell her friends, congratulations, you've hit it. And this is not, I repeat, not disrespect for the human race. I love human beings, but let's be honest, collectively, we are a bit dumb. No, not dumb. I'm not saying we're stupid. I'm just saying that collectively we are not wise. And it's very, very important to remember that. So, I said something a moment ago which I want to just pick up on again very briefly. The distinction between these two critical audiences. Let's call them the mass audience and the specialized or business or elite audience. One of the problems that Robert and I notice as we're working around the world is that there is very often in the field of place branding a big confusion between those two different species of human being. We, all of us, me included, often make the mistake of talking about countries as if they have one brand, one image. The image of Chile in the world, we say, the image of Brazil, the image of Panama. In reality, this is an unforgivable shortcut because there's no country on earth that only has one brand. It depends who you ask. The image of Chile is very different if you ask a Bolivian or if you ask somebody from Eritrea or if you ask somebody from Laos. It depends who you ask. And not just which country they live in, but also their age, their level of education, their interest in travel, their personality, their character. Chile, just like any other country, has about 8 billion brands. And it simply depends on who you ask. And so what we have to do is to somehow construct a meaningful average or a set of meaningful averages out of those 8 billion different brands and what they stand for. And the only way we can construct meaningful averages is by doing intelligent clustering. And intelligent clustering starts with understanding the difference between a country's elite audience and its mass audience, because this is so important. Many people who work in government tend to meet, let's be honest, quite a restricted number of other human beings. The average government minister, generally speaking, tends to meet other highly educated, highly literate people from other parts of the world. Diplomats, investors. Why? That's their job, of course. And during the average working week, the majority of people they come into contact with are people who are highly informed, highly educated, and also have a really powerful interest in being extremely polite to them. In fact, many of them are professional at being polite to them because they're diplomats. And so the only story most government officials ever hear about their own country is, "You are the best country on earth after us." It's the only story they ever hear. So it's not surprising if after a few years or a few decades in the role, they begin to get a rather distorted view of what the world, the rest of humanity, actually thinks about your country. And if you're a minister or if you're an ambassador, many do this. It's very important to occasionally take a walk, maybe without a tie on, and listen to ordinary people talking about your country. Look at the data. We publish a study called the Anhalt Nation Brands Index, which since 2005 has been measuring public opinion about countries. And it's often very shocking to governments when they discover what ordinary people on the street think, or more likely, don't think about your country. The most common response, we've collected 1.5 billion data points over the last 18 years about what ordinary people think about other countries. The most common response is, sorry? They're not apologizing, they're saying, "I don't know this country, I've never heard of it." That is astonishingly common. Even Chile, with so many reasons why people should know about Chile. You would be amazed how many people on the planet have never even heard of Chile. Or maybe they're not quite sure where it is. So that's a very important dose of humility. Yes, you heard me right. It's not a word one often hears in these kinds of contexts, but humility is essential. You have to say to yourself, listen, I come from my country, I'm super proud of it. That's normal, that's natural, as long as it doesn't become belligerent, as long as you don't start thinking you're superior to other countries. But what is really, really, really important is that you don't allow that to cloud your judgment and allow you to forget what it feels like to be simply indifferent to another country. Because most people on the planet are simply indifferent to most other countries, and that's the challenge you're facing. Your story about your country has no right to exist. It has no right to be interesting. And the most important question to ask in this context is not, do people like us? Do people think we're cool. No. The most interesting question is, do people want to like us? Are they sufficiently interested? In English, as in Spanish, as in many other languages, we have the expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And this is another profound truth about the human race. You can talk to them all day about your wonderful country, but if they're not interested, if they don't want to hear it, you're wasting your time. And so much place branding is either basically Soviet propaganda or American marketing. And that's the way that the world of place branding has gone in the last century. You've got a number of countries who basically take a Soviet view of place branding, which basically says, the reason why all those ignorant people out there don't know anything about our country, our glorious country, is because they're ignorant. Because they lack factual, robust information about the reality of our state. And therefore, there is an information gap. And our job is to fill that gap with correct information. This is the Soviet propaganda view. It may work in a closed society. Tragically, it does work in closed societies. But it doesn't work internationally. It never has, and it never will. It's absurd, because the world is full of information. We live in an age of information. We are drowning in information. It's not correct information about your country that people lack. It's the desire to access that information. If I want to find out about Guatemala or Eswatini, I only have to go to Wikipedia, and there'll be enough information about those countries for me to waste the rest of my life exploring it. That's not the point. The point is, why should somebody be sufficiently interested to go and access that information? And that is called love. There has to be love, otherwise there is no energy to learn. And if there is no energy to learn, there is no brand. The other model, as I said, is American marketing. And American marketing is an even more powerful religion than Soviet propaganda. After all, it's the model that won, right? And American marketing says, you've got to tell your story. You've got to brand. You've got to push out your product and sell it to those ignoramuses. And you've got to get the right price and the right message and the right packaging and the right design and the right PR campaign, the right pictures, the right words. It's not wrong at all. But it's a remedy, a recipe that has to be treated with extreme caution. It works pretty well for products and corporations, as history shows. It doesn't work very well for countries, not really, because fundamentally a country is not a product. You are not selling Chile to people in other countries, I hope. What you are doing, arguably, is you are selling its products to people in other countries. And this brings me back to the distinction I started making a few minutes ago about the specialist audiences. The skills, the processes of investment promotion, trade promotion, promoting for attracting talent, exporting Chilean products and services, these are marketing exercises. They are marketing disciplines. How do I define that? You've got a product, you've got a potential customer for that product, and you need to inform the customer about the reasons why they should buy your product instead of your competitor's product. It's very simple, it's very honest, it's very transparent, and in principle, it's very easy. All you need is a lot of money, a lot of creativity, a lot of imagination, and you do a selling job. This has got remarkably little to do with place branding. But remember that when you're talking to those people, that is a marketing exercise. Sector-specific promotion is a marketing exercise. What I've been talking about this morning is a different thing. It's about managing the overall image of the country. And we all understand how those two things are connected. Of course we do. We understand how a powerful and positive national image makes the promotion of sectors much easier and much cheaper. This was my starting point when I began to write about this discipline all those years ago. Countries with powerful and positive images find that they always trade at a premium. They can sell their products and services at a higher price more easily, and they spend less money on marketing because people already want that product. They already know they want that product. I trust, for example, Tesla as a brand. Don't ask me why, but I don't need to ask, should I buy the Model 3 or the Model S, because I trust the parent brand. In the same way, I will buy a Japanese product, even though I've never heard of it before, because I trust where it comes from. The marketing academics call this the country of origin effect, and it's very powerful and it's very important. So there is a connection between the image of the country and the promotion of the sectors, but we should never get the two activities confused. Promoting sectors does, in the long term, build the brand image of the country. Building the brand image of the country does, in the long term, make the promotion of sectors much easier and cheaper. And what was the other half of my quote? The other half was, countries with weak or negative images trade at a permanent discount. They find that everything they do is more expensive and more difficult. The populations of countries with weak images pay more taxes to try and export their products or attract more tourists or attract more talent because it's a harder job. If people think you're a bad country, it's harder to persuade them. And so the two things, the image of the country and the promotion of the sectors, are very, very strictly linked in a very complex and very complicated way, but they are not the same discipline. So the first piece of advice that we always give to countries when we go to them is make sure you're creating a robust distinction between sector-specific promotion and the overall management of the country. And the biggest difference between the two is the fact that promoting sectors and their products and services is done through marketing, improving the brand image of the country is not. So, what does improve the image of the country? Well, as the introduction kindly said, it's what you do, it's not what you say about yourself. If you try and do nation branding campaigns and say to people, we're wonderful, we're fantastic, admire us, well, you look like a loser, don't you? You know, that's like me going on the stage and saying, do you think I look good in this suit? Does it look okay? Does it fit? You know? Countries are the same. If they start going around the world saying, hey, we're really great, your assumption is they're not. Otherwise, why would they be spending all this money trying to kid you that they are? It's propaganda. Luckily, we live in a free world still, just about. And we mistrust, instinctively, government propaganda from other states. We totally ignore it, because we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to mess with our minds, and we reject that. We refuse it. So what does work? Well, ironically, to answer that question, you have to think like a marketer. And what do marketers know? What is the one thing that every marketer in the world knows? What every marketer in the world knows is that customer is king. It's not about what you do. It's not about what you've got. It's not about what you've done or even what you're going to do. It's about what they want. So the simplest thing you can do if you're planning an approach to place branding is to start with the audience and say, where are they? What's worrying them? What do they want to learn that maybe we could teach? What do they want to know that we could tell them about? What do they think is broken that we could fix? What do they want done that maybe we could do? Fitting what your country does to the needs of the audience out there, that's the answer, and that's where you start. And it's almost laughably easy because, as I've been saying all along, we live in an age where we're faced by nothing but problems. It's just a wonderful moment to be alive. There have never been so many goddamn problems, one after another. It's the age of constant crisis, and it's absolutely thrilling because it provides so many opportunities for countries to make themselves useful. And that's where image comes from. I often express it like this. Imagine a random person. Imagine a 14-year-old girl in Tajikistan. I apologize to 14-year-old girls in Tajikistan that I always use this example, but in the heat of the moment, nothing better occurs to me. But imagine you are a 14-year-old girl in Tajikistan. She is not a random person to her mother or to her boyfriend, but to us for the moment, let's just say she's random. What we need is for her, in the last 10 seconds before she drifts off to sleep at night, thinking, thank God Chile exists. Right? That is success. That, folks, is place branding. Now that sounds like a very, very, very high ambition, and it is, believe me. I mean, if it was just one 14-year-old girl in Tajikistan, maybe not, you could pay her. But if it's everybody on the planet, that's a very serious ambition, but that is what we're talking about. And so it's about matching what you can do and what you're going to do to the needs of the marketplace, and not, repeat, not for moral reasons, but because this is the only thing they're interested in. And if you want a better image, you've got to be interested in what interests them. Everybody out there wants to know one thing and one thing alone about Chile. What are you doing about this terrible world that we are living in, which looks as if it's getting more terrible with every day that passes? Are you doing something about climate change? Are you doing something about the threat to democracy? Are you doing something about migration? Are you doing something about poverty? Everybody in the world can list those challenges. And the only thing they want to know, and the research confirms this, is that they're glad that Chile exists. And that is my last sentence because my time has run out. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias a Simon
Thank you very
Hampton
much
por haber compartido
to
estas valiosas
Simon for sharing
informaciones
this
y
valuable
reflexiones que
information
vienen desde
and
una
reflection
larga y relevante
coming from a
experiencia. Nos
relevant
inspiran sin
experience.
duda a
They
pensar cómo
inspire us
podemos
to
mejorar
think
nuestro
of
trabajo
how we can
conjunto
improve
como
our
país.
joint work
Antes
as a
de
country.
pasar a
Before
nuestro panel que hemos llamado
continuing with
La
our
Marca de
panel
Chile, la
called
marca
Chile's
de
brand,
todos, todas,
everyone's
los queremos
brand,
invitar a
we'd like to
reflexionar acerca de lo
invite
que
you
se ha
to reflect
conversado esta
upon what's been
mañana
talked
con un
about during
necesario
this
café.
morning
Nos
with
reencontramos
a
en 30 minutos más.
delicious coffee. See you in 30 minutes.
que hayan disfrutado del café, de la conversación y del encuentro con
Okay.
aquellos que tal vez
Now
hace
we-
tiempo no se veían. En este evento,
In
la
this
sexta
event,
versión del
the sixth
Encuentro
version of
Imagen de
the
Chile, donde
meeting
hemos
Imagen
reiterado
de Chile, where we have
que la
mentioned
marca
again that
país, la
the
imagen de Chile,
country
la
brand,
construimos entre
the
todos.
brand
Y
of
por
Chile
tanto
is
nos
built by
compete a
everyone.
todos.
So is
Eso es lo que
all
también
of our
comparte la directora de Inglés
works. And
Chile,
so
Carla
that's
Flores,
what
el
Carla
director
Flores,
general de
the
ProChile,
Director General Ignacio
y el
Fernandez,
presidente
and
de
the
Frutas de
President of
Chile,
Chile Fruit, Ivan
quienes no
Marambio,
pudieron estar en este
and they were
encuentro,
not
pero
able
nos
to be
enviaron sus
here. They
mensajes.
sent their messages to us.
Quisiera enviar
I
un
would like
cordial
to send
saludo en primer
a
lugar a
nice
la
greeting,
directora de la
first of all,
Fundación
to the
Imagen de
director
Chile,
of the
Rosana
Foundation, Rosana Dresner,
y por su intermedio a todos los
and
funcionarios y
also to all of
funcionarias
the
también de la Fundación y por
officers of the
supuesto a todos los
Foundation
asistentes
and all
hoy a
of
este
the
evento.
attendees of
Me
today's
habría
event.
encantado acompañarlos
I would love to be
presencialmente,
there
pero como algunos
face to
de ustedes
face,
ya saben,
but as you know,
estamos en una
we are
importante
in a
misión
very
junto al
important
Ministerio de Obras
mission
Públicas
with
para promover
the
la cartera de
Civil
concesiones
Works
entre los inversionistas japoneses
Ministry,
y
with the
coreanos,
Japanese and Korean
promover a
investors,
Chile como un
to
destino
promote Chile as an attractive destination for the international investment. That's a very important part of our work as Invert Chile, and to do it, that's fundamental to work in a coordinated manner, articulated fashion, not just with the foundation, but with all of the stakeholders that have a say in other countries about the qualities of our country. Of course, fundamental pillars are the seriousness of our country, how we meet our commitments, our institutionality that is modern, robust, the human capital that we have, etc. Those are the fundamental pillars of our value proposal as a country, as an investment for destination, and with other qualities and attributes that complement this value proposal that is also related to all of the cultural aspects, with all of our landscapes, tourism, with our exporting industry. So the cooperation between the public and private sector and the coordination in the face of the world is a key aspect, and of course our mission as a foundation to position this image abroad is a key element for the work of all of us. I would like to repeat the commitment of our foundation to keep working in a collaborative manner with the foundation, with all of the stakeholders, public and private, and to continue putting the name of our country in the world and to manage the benefit of that positioning to get to everyone. Thank you very much. Hello, this is Ivan Marambio, President of Chile Fruit. Unfortunately, I am not able to be there with you in this sixth meeting of the Foundation event. So I wanted to greet you because the image of the country is fundamental, and we built it collectively. The work that we do as Chile Fruit with the Foundation is very important for us, for our sector, for the agriculture in general. Hello, good morning. I'm Ignacio Fernandez, General Director of ProChile. Through this video, I would like to greet the attendees to this new meeting that is organized by the Foundation Imagen Chile to reflect about a very important topic, like it is the positioning of our country internationally. As you know, one of the main objectives of ProChile is to support and to promote the export of goods and services of Chilean companies to the world. This task involves, in some, to project and to cooperate in the building of a positive image of Chile abroad, and to strengthen our presence and prestige in international markets. And in this way, we need to work cooperatively with the different public institutions, just like the Foundation Imagen de Chile, a work that we want to continue doing day after day. My invitation is to continue with this task, to continue building our positioning internationally, and to incorporate all of the views from the different perspectives, continue growing in Chile. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for these messages. And well, in this next block, we are going to ask ourselves, is it possible to assign a brand to a country, to a territory? Simon mentioned something about that. Does it have any incidence on the success of the activities in that territory? That's what we're going to talk in the next conversation, where we're going to deep dive in the importance of the strategy development of place branding through spaces, speeches, and concrete tools to incorporate the public and private sectors, led by Rosana Dresdner, Executive Director of the Imagen de Chile Foundation. This panel is formed by the Minister of Sport, Jaime Pizarro, the Undersecretariat, Verónica Pardo, the Undersecretariat of the Cultures, Noela Salas, the President of the Exporting Council of Food, Claudio Chilbetti, the International Director of Pro Chile, Natalia Arcos, and the Leader of Marketing of Invest Chile, Fabiola Sama. We would like to invite you to come to the stage. Once we finish the conversation, there's going to be a space for questions and answers. A round of applause, please. Well, I wanted to thank to all of our guests today. We have a great panel. I wanted to thank Mr. Minister of Sport, Jaime Pizarro, and President of the Santiago 2023 Corporation that was in charge of the organization, as you know, of the successful Pan American Games and Pan American Games. I want to tell you through this that according to the study, Guru Chileno, that we did with the Foundation and the Catholic University, the initiative that created the most pride among the Chileans, it was the Pan American Games. 75% of our interviewees expressed that they were very proud of this initiative. And as a result, since we did this study in the Foundation, this study in 2023, that was a year where the Pride for Chile reached its maximum historical. So I wanted to ask a round of applause for the Minister for all the work of the corporation. Really, it's great work. And it was a work, as we discussed, Minister, that was a collective work related to our slogan, which is the image of Chile is built by everyone. I also wanted to greet to Verónica Pardo, Tourism Undersecretary, to tell you that in the tourism area, Chile was highlighted by the World Travel Award, which is like the tourism Oscars, as the best green destination in the year 2019, 2020, 2022, and 2023. And also, for the 9th year in a row, last year, Chile obtained the World Travel Award as the best destination for adventure tourism in South America, being highlighted in the whole region as the best country. Please, another round of applause for everyone that is promoting our tourism. I wanted to greet the Undersecretary Noelia Salas, Culture and Arts Undersecretariat, and to tell you that in this sector that there is another study that we do that is measured as with international destinations, priority destinations. It's called the longitudinal destination, which is done with Ipsos, and in its 2024 version that we haven't yet revealed, 70% of the interviewees abroad, they recognize Chile for their art and patrimony. That's important, the culture, the Chilean culture has for our image. Also, we have been witness of the successful performance of our cinema industry in the recent years. It's a recently new phenomenon, and also we wanted to mention with a special pride that Chile is the country that is the honored guest to the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is the international fair with the greatest prestige in the world. So another round of applause for the people working in the culture area. To introduce the president of the Food Export Council and friend, we have been working a lot, Claudio Silvetti, and to tell you that about this sector, really, that also based on the result of the longitudinal study, wine and Chilean fruit are permanently the products that are more recognized of our country abroad. And according to the foreigners that were interviewed, the main attribute for these two products is quality. Also, we need to add that in January of this year, it was the greatest sale month of fresh fruit since we have the record, getting to a total of more than $2,000 billion. And I wanted to also give you a round of applause for this work in the food industry, exporting all around the world. I also wanted to greet to Natalia Arcos, International Director of Chile, and also we received the greeting of its General Director, and to tell you that in January 2024, the country exported more than 2,600 non-traditional products, which correspond to 1,700 more than the previous year. So we're diversifying our export. Also to tell you that the export in total for the country in January reached to 2.7 increase with a return of more than 9,900, almost 10 million. Also a great and a round of applause for all of the exporting sectors. And I want to introduce Fabiola Sama, leader of Saman, marketing leader of Invest Chile, whose director also will receive a greeting previously. Also, Invest Chile is doing a great work. And to tell you that the international investment in general reached this year almost $2,000 million, $2,900 million, which is translated in an increase of almost 18% compared to January 2023. $20 million, sorry. Also, please, a round of applause for this achievement, this great work too, the attraction of an investment which is so fundamental for our country. That is this transversal panel. The image of Chile is built by everyone, is to progress in terms of what we established last year. We have seen that we have progressed a lot. We are working with different sectors, among the different sectors, all together, progressing in that, and to see how we can get even further. First, to ask you how you apply the concept of place branding in each of your sectors, because they are very different sectors. As you can see, the challenge is that we all agree on a joint work and the same story and image. Please, Mr. Minister. Good morning. I would like to thank you for this space, and especially also to thank for the perception that there's has been from the community. Also, we live this from the sport people, the delegation, the tourists, about the Pan American Games organization and Pan American Games of the year 2023. To tell you that in general, in terms of the positioning, in terms of relationships, of the link, I think it's an event that makes us feel very satisfied in terms of how we were able to integrate the public world. We had 20 ministries and their services, in many cases, participating directly. In addition to that, also to have the possibility to deploy, only the Pan American had 42 venues distributed in 4 regions of the country, where we had articulation of some natural stages with buildings, infrastructure, with design of mobilization, transport, logistics, which were very important. And I think, in fact, being able to have a joint work, collaborative, integrating task, it was very relevant for us. I think for our country, this experience not only allowed it to be highlighted in the data and reference and surveys in terms of how these games were perceived, but also in accumulating many experiences to continue developing activities and events. We are very happy to see how this situation triggered the thing that our country has been designated as a venue for new events in sports in different disciplines, in different territories. And I think that's very challenging too, to continue working together. I think the expression and the value of our country is cooperation, integration, is being able to diversify. We live there some interesting phenomena about inclusion, the amount of attendees, of families in the sport venues that we had, in a very special way, new disciplines. But I would say in a way that it was wonderful for me in terms of supporting also all of the Paralympic sports. That was also a very important expression. Just to give you a summary, there was almost 1.5 million spectators in the games. And I think that's a reflection of the interest of the community in being able to live this, to be a part of this and participate. I think that's a reflection of what Chile is able to do when we work together appropriately, and when we do this event, which is the poly sport event, the most important one that Chile has organized. The idea is that we can talk, and not only myself asking the question, but it's interest for me and what I kept. This is a sport event, but it wasn't really just a sport event. It was an event that involved many different sectors, but also the people don't think in Santiago 2023 as a sport event as itself. It was like a country thing. I don't know, what do you think from the other sectors?
Yes, clearly it was like that. We, as tourism, cannot show what we are not. Tourism is the platform through which culture, arts, heritage, sport, architecture, gastronomy, culinary, and what's urban are shown. And supporting for the success of our activities is part of what we do. And I'm taking the first question. Yes, absolutely. Pan Americans were one of the activities facilitating the tourists to be in the place we want them to be. And let me say, well, I can't say this, yeah, but we are the first economic line taking the brand of Imagen Chile and took it to tourism, and we launched it and featured in Spain with it was very well received, and we made an update of the brand strategy of ours. And for those who do not know, that's part of what we will work. Chile Travel on an international level, Chile Studio on an international level, but we left the Chile Marca with a Chile and un viaje infinito, an endless trip. That's the positioning. Chile with 5 big micro zones, and as Simon was saying, and that's part of the logics under the branding we have to make. The plus branding is what's the distinctive of the country, allowing other places to be seen, to be different, but they are really authentic, not to show what we are not. And Chile that is long and diverse, we have a desert, a north, and we have the Antarctic, and on the other hand, we have the southernmost microzone, 180 vineyards in the center microzone, and the south microzone's lakes and the best rafting, because there's no other country with so minimal difference between the mountains and the sea and the slopes, and well, it makes us capable of saying that Chile can offer 5 different destinations for a tourist. And this is what we got from this diversity perspective, and that's where we are. And that was exactly what we wanted to support in the Pan American Games, always placing the Marca Chile, and we developed this touristic hub where we provided the reference for the tourists for where to stay, where to eat, but basically the marca or the brand was strong. And let me conclude with this, but this is done by everyone and also plenty of generations. The brand construction is not only here, not only these years and this government. It's a permanent activity we need to nurture to position successfully the Chile we have all built with our differences, inequalities, but only in one country with one unique name. And that's where we need to work. And this is what we see. And when every region, every town raises their hand and I say, okay, I want to position myself, it's such a great pain because we need the need for everyone to be positioned or for wanting to be positioned, but the more remote they can see us from other countries, the more diversified our brand needs to be. And that should be an umbrella brand. Even in Asia, that has been launched, the brand South America visits South America, because in Africa they don't know about Chile. Even in Europe, Chile is not known as we want it to be known. Then the look of understanding how we have a vision where everything is longer and more expanded at ourselves. This is what we are building. I'm going to take the Pan Americans and Pan American Games subject to say the following. I believe it's such a national pride this year, but it left us some reflections and teachings, and they are interesting to place on the table today. When the Ministry of the Culture was invited to this session, there were plenty of challenges in terms of stories, accounts, and that's where I find an interesting key when topics such as what Chile is, what the strategy, those subjects were put on the table, and then came the original peoples, mountain, the seas, the nature. And probably the most uncomfortable or awkward space is what's urban, which is not always so beautiful, that is not always very clean. It's not what we want to show like that. And this is where the art and culture play a role. Art and culture are spaces to validate diversity. And we were able to see that diversity in the ceremonies when we saw people skating, riding their bikes, from Inti Gimani and Princesa Alba, Chilean artists were on a stage. And that has been one of the characteristics that from the ministry have pushed for, coordinated with other entities. Because here, you cannot go on your own. If you go on your own, you might be disconnected. And I think that's the good thing about it. And due to the Ministry of Sport gathering many entities in one table, we strengthen that need for being together, for unity. What I have to represent here is that we are not only the soundtrack or the poetry or color representing this country, but we are also the soul. And I made this call to other sectors because we really like to cooperate, and art and culture usually are seen as the younger brother. However, 70% of the interviewees recognize this country due to its art, to its artistic expression, and this is what makes this journey so magical, wonderful. It allows everyone to know this country without even being here. But thinking that every time that Mon Laferte, a Chilean singer, sounds in any place of the world, somebody transports immediately here, or when a book by a Chilean author, in this case Mr. Zambra, is read, immediately the connection appears. So any responsibility we have regarding ambassadors of the country, cultural ambassadors, and that's very beautiful because it allows us to travel to places where not only we want to place the airport photo when someone arrives in the country, and we do have an important role, and you are kindly invited to think of art not only as the event, but also as the soul of the total story we have to show. And besides, it's everyone's unique, everyone's perception of the sectors here, because art has always accompanied each of the expressions, not to mention the wine. What you say is very important because based on diversity on what's urban, we in our campaign, with our speech, what we are working on, we saw that. We found that problem. Diversity is a Chile characteristic, and therefore, rather than trying to find what Simon was saying, there's not just one thing that's a characteristic of the country. So how can we show diversity? And that's why these visuals help us, and they will show you the video for this campaign. And it has to do with that, where Chile effectively greatly is an urban expression. It can be expressed in what's urban without looking down on the other sectors. But Chile is expressed in the urban, and that needs to be present everywhere. Claudio, what do you think? The Pan American Games, the public and private coordination was something amazing. That helped people, sports people, athletes, to know that was for safety also. In terms of sanitary conditions, that was such a milestone. Probably it's not something that you can publicly see, but all our sports system perceived that, and it was a great coordination. I just wanted to give some context to what we're talking to our sector, which is food. We are 11 guilds producing such an amazing amount of food. We are, day by day, 153 million of inhabitants outside of Chile taste a product that mentions or that reads Origen Chile, Chile's image. This is why that positioning is anchored in everything we do. And as Simon said, rather than words, we need to show that with acts. And day by day, we have the possibility to foster this internationally, apart from inviting you to visit Chile. The Foundation today, with the new board council, has the great opportunity to promote this private-public partnership. We are going to be together for 50 years in coordination, and we have positioned Chile as a quality exporting country, products. And what we lack are resources to say that consumer needs to visualize, to understand that they need to add value to these products, and this amount of inhabitants should add value and relate Chile with a natural luxury. Luxury, we are always thinking of the positioning from the experience side, and products that somehow allow us to reach everyone, more than 150 countries, allows the association of that quality with that luxury, but we need to convey that. And in my opinion, we have reached maturity level in the level of exports, and through Pro-Chile, foundations, the Chancellor's Office, we all work together to refer to products or to launch products referring to our identity. What Simon says is to define what, but in the end, that needs to be done on a daily basis. And in order to reach that purpose, we have to translate that into resources. And the Foundation probably can organize that from a public-private partnership. Right, we'll be glad to do so. In the meanwhile, while resources are scarce, As Simon said, he spoiled us a lot in this conversation. Several spoilers before this conversation. We have possibilities to reach those faster. And connecting my conversation with the games, and I'm an athlete and also a spectator. Pro Chile generated a Chilean cube opened in the village, and there was a constant exhibition of product and services, all of them Chilean, where athletes, guests, visitors, tourists, people being here or arriving here due to culture or artistic activities, could enjoy our services and products. And our goal, apart from connecting that with Chile, was once they were back in their country, they could recognize our products in supermarkets. So it was such a very nice joint initiative that goes hand in hand with building brands from all the alignments worked from the public sector as well as the private sector. And coming back to the context, Pro Chile is devoted to the promotion of products or goods and services abroad. In the last 50 years, this is our 50th anniversary. What we have done is to join supply and demand. And the Marca País, the development of place branding, has allowed us to do that faster and with quality, in prestige, with the direct contact to all our listeners, to all those who are looking for us, in very simple things. You say, when the email has stamped Marca Chile, the reply gets faster. Probably the importer or the exporter looking at our brand in our country will reach us faster to our Chilean goods and services because they see under these brands sustainability, quality, and all the qualities being worked on currently. So what we see is that the brand is a central element in the competitiveness of the elements. One question. You say that you join supply and demand, and this explosive increase means that the demand is being more and more diverse? Absolutely. We see that markets are more and more sophisticated, and in that sense they are demanding different things, and that's not a minor subject. In 2023, Chile exported more than $2 billion in services, such a record, and that's related to diversification or diversity. In our case, we promote our audience looking for opportunities, business opportunities, that and beyond the way we look at positioning and understanding that the image is multidimensional and the plan is investment and is a development engine for Chile, the generation of employment, we could not only keep the differentiating attributes and specific ones regarding what's our differential as an investment destination within that range, without using adjectives or overwhelming adjectives, and only using terms that might be useful for any country. We have referred to Chile gaining an important territory trajectories, and also adding elements and attributes referring to a Chile, such as Chile as a synonym of sustained development because it's part of its constitutionality, solidity, democracy, that work towards the climate change, the efforts to be seen as a sustainable country, the effort to generate reputation, talent, position as hub in Latin America, and being the entrance gate for Latin America because Chile is a small market, and although it has some qualities, not precisely attractive to sell. There are several factors. It's entrepreneurship ecosystem, and other contexts such as lithium, you see, can allow us to talk about Chile with more arguments and taking the information towards what the investor is looking for. Having said that, that's not enough, because finally, this is allocation at Chile as an investment destination. That would be the first level of country promotion without the need for having more than business or only business, because finally it's an experience being installed here, not only the production factor and the company or the enterprise. This comes with other professionals from different areas, and this is where we tried to highlight all the soft skills Chile has to show an integrality of an ideal country, a competitive or attractive country as a investing destination. And we not only attract the name of Chile to attract investments, but it's accompanied of a story of what can Chile give you in terms of life quality, with culinary, with culture, with wine, with food, and in the case of events, everything that is part of a complementary Chile or complementary to what's outside the business but allows Chile to be assessed totally and can be a competitor for other countries, has to do with activities such as the Pan American Games, America's Cup in football with the Lollapalooza. Chile was the first one which imported after the United States. Chile is seen having as a vibrant culture, generating safety, educational level, and things making Chile or adding value to the aforesaid. I love to hear that. I like listening to that, because this is the way we can move on. My impression is that we have been making progress. I see the way we are working and more every time. And the next question has to do with that. And although I would say that outside or apart from the Pan American or Pan American Games, and when we had that Chile Week activity and PEC 28, but we have identified, trial and error, some events such as Pan American, Chile Week, COP28 or 28, where we have added, and we call them cross-sectional events involving the whole country. But Pan American Games, I would say that's the best example of cross-sectionality. Then the next question has to do with what any other space of yours or what any other type of collaboration can you contribute with, so that everyone, our athletes, got to know Chilean products, not only fruit, and they can had the collaboration. There was a collaboration with the subway transport and different elements. What any other spaces can you see to organize this type of events? That could be a homework also for us. How we can more and more involve in different events nationwide with a nation nature. For example, the Frankfurt Book Fair, that's such a monster. They have signed an agreement, and it's going to happen in 3 more years or 2 years and a half. But the agreement says that during these 2 years and a half, Chile has to do plenty of things. We are proposing a project integrating on the road to Frankfurt. But what any other events, for example, you and the secretary, how can you see that is how a sports export system, tourism in that concrete event can be added?
Well, the Frankfurt Fair is very important. In fact, we had the honor of also leading this event of the signature and to commit ourselves as a country, because this is not a government thing, it's a state policy. And today the Chilean literature is in the side of the world. The story that we gave to this Frankfurt pathway is the clearest skies of the world to describe. They are in Chile, so we are working with the world of the astronomy, with the world of the stars, and that's going to be very beautiful for this path, how we're going to support this path. And I think the creativity is very elastic, so we can collaborate in very many different ways. The mining, art, what do they have in common? They are related, of course, because of course it's very easy to think We associate with each other. We do partnership. You put the wine, the food. We're going to put the music. That's the most wonderful thing. That's the initial step. But in this creative exploration, we can find very diverse ways to support each other, because all of the sectors have certain purposes. Today, our sector, to get to Frankfurt, needs to translate a lot of text. We cannot get there with only a Spanish reading. We have to do a translation work. How we are going to support the translation work? Basically, what the poetry is saying, the literature, the essays. There's a lot of literature about wine, but also about sports. Today we have texts and books talking about soccer matches. There's a lot to do there. I don't want to go again to the Pan American issue. We are going to do it anyway, but we had a very nice activity which is called Dialogues in Movement, where basically a writer shares a creative process with children, and we use different texts about sport. Even we have athletes participating. I think the exploration frontiers are very diverse. It only depends on us. I think here the brand space is very important to do that cooperation work, because we have teams that develop narratives and roadmaps. We will have to see how to cross them, but I think that we have a big challenge from the cultural world with all of the countryside world. I think the craft plays a very important and fundamental role there, from the different economies in the countryside world, how we can coordinate that to have a common exit. But I think in particular for Frankfurt, we have a possibility that is very nice to create a path. We have several years with a lot of milestones. Germany is a destination that is very interesting also for our country. And India is also a door to Europe, because it's going to be relevant in the future. And I think it's also important when you are a Chilean person and you go to the other continents, and as the Undersecretary said, maybe in other countries they don't even know us at all. And we also represent Latin America, and that's also important. And I think that's also an opportunity that we have as a region to be able to position ourselves. And what's the role in Chile in the region? I think we have an invitation there to look together and to be able to move forward. And I'm very open, certainly, to all of the proposals we can get for this long path that we have until Frankfurt, which is not so long. So we have to rush a little bit. In the beginning, you think there are some sectors that you don't really think that they are connected, but in Chile, we have many creative areas working together with the culture ministry. I wanted to tell you about a very specific initiative that we are doing this year in terms of the events that we call icons, like the Chile Weeks. This year, we're going to have 3, unlike the previous year that we did only 1, Brazil, China, and India. This year, we provided the international events that we're going to do to work together with the different sectors, public sectors and private sector, and to do cross promotions. That's the objective, to show Chile as a mix, because you can drink pisco watching a very good Chilean movie, because we don't have to really promote our country in a specific sector. Today it's very transversal. We're generating work tables to collect all of the initiative from the private sector, also people here from the unions, professional union sector, and the objective is that in these activities, in our promotions in the world, to do it together. We have done already some efforts last year with China, where we were strongly working with Invest Chile, with the private sector, with tourism. Also, we went to Brazil. So I think that this year we have an important opportunity, and I would like to invite you that with for Chile we can have these cross promotions abroad. I wanted to mention a couple of things. It started with Chile with the sectorial brand. Today we have a dynamic of work where, for example, the one with the cherries, wine and meat, salmon, etc. Really, that's a natural thing, but not less important. We have some other initiatives, like, for example, the triangle that I always mention, that is virtuous tourism and wine industry. Also, that's an image that with ProChile we are working with a destination like the tourist that comes from Brazil or from other parts of South America. Also, there are some cooperation spaces with among the different sectors. And if we need to mention one event, and Rosana asked the question, where can we express ourselves? We have to really look Expo Saca, that is coming next year. These universal fairs where really we have the opportunity during 6 months of strengthening, particularly in Asia. There is today one of the main consumers of our products. We have a lot of work to do together, and as tourism, we go to 6 international big fairs and some other which are smaller. And our stand had a very important chain. We got an award in England last year, specifically for being the best stand for the generation of business. And this stand also represented how we want to promote Chile and also for the image of Chile, because we know that tourists come from the nature here, but we know basically they are looking for an experience here. And the third activity that they do, the third one, is eating, gastronomy. That's the reason why we want to start with a strong promotion of the Chilean gastronomy, the Chilean cooking, because together with wine, it's important to have a very good eating, very good food. When I say this, how we can position this in our stand? Our stand has got our Chilean craft from the macro zones, the 5 macro zones that we have. It was updated in the year 2016. Each macro zone shows something from our country. 75% of the gastronomy power is in Chile, so that's why the 4 regions in the north, they have developed strongly the astrotourism, where pisco is a good support, and also wine. And what we do, we have craft of these macro zones, we have the pictures of the macro zones, we have the wine present all the time, and since this year, we also now have the Chilean food, because it's the experience what makes a difference when a tourist come to Chile. And the experience that we are supporting, we know that the centrality in the nature, but on the nature, that's what we call the adventure tourism, understanding this as a mix of the nature, the experience that is related to the community, and also with the food and sport, where walking is also a sport. And in Chile, we need that because we have the biggest mountain and we have the least amount of kilometers per citizen. We need to show what we have and to visualize that in our stand. And I'm closing with this. What we are going to show needs to be similar. So when we see Chile, they see a brand, but they also see a story, but also something that is always hidden. Basically, the personal agendas to be at the service of the country agendas. And that's a key element. We need to change the egos. We need to go from ego to leadership, thinking, why do I want to promote Chile for my personal benefit or for the country benefit? I think that's a hidden agenda that we need to really develop. I totally believe in creativity, but I totally believe that we need to do conversations, humble conversation, listen a lot, and not impose an idea together with the idea of why we need to promote Chile. Totally agree on that. continuing and complementing a profile of a potential tourist, because when, and I would like to really mention this, we have a forum that is going to be done this year for the 7th time. The 6th one was after the pandemic, was the first time that we wanted to request the face-to-face events after the business logics that were very changed, and with the remote work very present and very perform effectively. In our forum, the particularity is not only the positioning of Chile as an investment destination and opportunities for investment, but it's also a tool to generate investment portfolios. That's part where we have a plenary general public that is to show this and to understand what Chile has to offer in general terms and also sectoral terms, but also it has an agenda of bilateral meetings with the investors that come. I'm saying this because in spite of the fact that many of them are already installed here and investing, but some others are coming from abroad, and the experience Chile has always crossed the foreign experience as itself, because we are also interested that the person is coming from abroad, generally profiles of executive of certain level, having a very tight agenda. When they decide to come to Chile, which is not really close, some of them come from Europe, Asia, from Latin America too, but in general they come from a long way. It's evident that they can spend more time as they have more information to have an after event or pre-event, checking the gastronomy and doing small tours, going to the mountains, depending on the date of the event. And we try to do it this way. We do it at the half of the week, so they have the obligation to stay a little more and trying to express the Chilean experience, not only from the geographical course and the brand that is. I worked for a while in Imagen Chile, so I have been able to transfer all the knowledge that we had from the matrix towards the investment area and trying to help that the other pillars and the other speeches that we have associated to Chile, more than business. So we provide a QR code with the movies, with everything they can do, which is the Chile Travel website, a series of things to have a more comprehensive travel. We can always do the things in a more articulated way. If we have an international national event, we also promote this, and we try to have a comprehensive experience, understanding that the coherence and experience, they do not work by themselves. They are articulated and together. It also generates portfolio and not only investment. 46 projects we generated in the last version. So we count what happens in that forum in terms of the positioning with surveys and different of measurements of perception. At the same time, the generation in terms of portfolio, which is what we check as. So there is an effort in qualitative and quantitative terms in terms of the positioning and performance. So very well. I wanted to use this time because listening to you, as we say all of the previous apply, because it is interesting, funny that an event mobilizes a lot of people in the case of sport. I think I totally agree that the agendas need to have a superior objective, and the superior objective is Chile. From the perspective of the sports, we have shown in this experience that we can say, what do we have to do with mining? However, one of the main sponsors of Santiago 2023, not only we were invited for the development of the medals with a copper heart, and that's symbolic not only for an athlete that is looking for a medal, but also for a Chilean athlete, because they know the relevance of the copper in our markets, in our history. And from there, what's coming is not a minor thing. Today, Chile has been assigned with different venues. We have different events coming. We're thinking that we want them to be organized in the regions. We want to coordinate them in a good timing, because we know going to a region during the holidays probably is not the most optimum thing. And we say not from the hotel industry perspective, but also the transfer, the arrival of tourists, all of the perspectives. So we are going to have a very good opportunity. We are working for international events of a high presence of athletes and delegations. Special Olympics, for example, is a project that could have between 7,000 and 8,000 athletes. Therefore, the experience today needs to be a strengthening so we can have the best representation of our country brand among the sports event. And also, in that way, we articulate ourselves, because with culture, we just not have the ceremony, but permanently in our venues, they receive cultural events and performances. So there is a very profound affinity in terms of how we can contribute and making that all of our management to be amplified by the relationship that we can develop. Thank you very much. We are running out of time. Now we're going to have a question and answer section. If the audience wants to ask a question, I just wanted to say, as I mentioned before in my opening words, we are looking for spaces of joint work. We're going to be in the Chile Week events. We're going to be in Frankfurt. We're supporting Vancouver. We're supporting the mining trip in Toronto next. And we are doing this. Also, we have a meeting in May. This is the journalists normally say this, but I want to announce that we're very happy. We're going to start working based on seeing an idea of imaginary for the green hydrogen of Chile, to have a country identity in what we can do in that industry. So that's about it. If you have any questions, please, a round of applause for the panel and for Rosana Dresner for leading the panel. And here we have the first question. You need to just raise your hand.
My name is Darío Garcia. On behalf of O'Higgins Regional Government, let me thank you for Marca Chile and Roxana, because these are the instances where we can generate coordination to private, public, and multisectorial in all Chile. Rather than a question, I like to refer to something that was pretty emotional for the Ministry, the Undersecretary, which is the touristic seal in Pichilemu launch. That was a launch where we had using the minister in a surf costume and outfit to dive in Pichilemu. And this is what happens if a wave comes? Well, you see, that was what the minister mentioned, how those sport instances, because we launched that in June, low season, generate a demand to tourism economy, to all the ecosystem, a chain of tourist services, and it's good. You think of regions when it comes to that. It's one of the legacies left by the Pan American Games 2023. All the infrastructure that is there installed to continue with that sport legacy. There was a silver medal in Pichilemu with Rafa Cortez, and he has reached all the world with the wine world. We have the advantage that Chile is in the end of the O'Higgins region, so we need to go through the wine region. Now we have Arranca recognized as one of the best places in the world for rural tourism, so you're kindly invited to Barranco. New York Times recognized us the 8th destination to know this year, to be this year. So it's about how this virtuous link between the private and public world is coordinated. Now in April, we'll have that in our region, and how we can relate culture with mining. We have World Heritage in Sewell in the region, and we have one more example of how I can link mining with that World Heritage site Oscar Castro Zúñiga, a writer, one of the best skies to write. So Chile, as the marketing strategy says, is endless. And continuity for that Chile where impossible is possible. And that goes hand in hand with everything that has been achieved. So one more time, let me say thank you. Regions have a lot to say, have a lot to contribute for the construction of the Chile's image. Anyone else?
Acá tenemos otra pregunta, allá arriba y después acá abajo.
We have like 3 more questions. My name is Cristian Sasso from Invest Chile. My question is for Roxana. By thanking, well, I start by thanking all the panelists. There's a lot of promotion that's an international promotional, but it's also local aspects such as tourism or culture. And that has been accompanied of Marca Chile campaigns in all the public organs, organizing dissemination campaigns. But my question is, what happens with the measurement of those campaigns associated to branding, which are a cutting marketing component? Because it's several actions, but my sense, my feeling is that Chileans are the biggest disseminators of the country's brand or Marca País, and that's important to reflect that on the developed brand. I have said that in Marca Chile they conduct diverse studies, but I feel they are more associated to the perception of Chile as a country, but not 100% as a specific brand. If we launch a branding campaign, how are we able to measure the perception on the users, the Chile inhabitants, so they can be the brand disseminators? And I think this is important because it's how very diverse in culture and tourism that the Chilean should be the main promoter and have a clear story of what Chile offers and a clear alignment since we are the promoters in international markets. That happens, or that's my feeling, because my question is, how can we increase the diffusion or the dissemination of the Marca Chile?
¿Sí? ¿Quién la responde?
Maybe we can ask all the
¿Prefiere juntar las
questions,
preguntas? ¿Sí?
or you can answer them right now. Well, let me say that we conduct 2 studies. One is Orgullo Chileno, Chilean Pride, and the other one is the perception of Chile on Chile and being Chilean. And the other one is the longitudinal study, which this year will be 13 priority markets, where the question is about the perception they have about Chile and the knowledge they have about it. And we have, as one of our missions, the promotion of Chile abroad. So we do not conduct studies or campaigns, internal ones. Nevertheless, I agree what you say, the importance Chileans have in the promotion of the brand. And among or within the projects we're going to organize, I don't remember the name, but it has a pedagogic goal, I would say, and that's an internal project within Chile, and it has to do with the possibility to understand what is the Chile's image, because all of us have to do with that, but we do not do campaigns, and this is not a campaign per se. It's not it's an educational campaign will do.
Bien, tenemos espacio para 2 preguntas
We
más.
have 2 more questions.
Y después el señor
Gracias.
Thank you.
Soy Fernando Reyes Mata, miembro
Fernando Reyes Mata, that's my name, member of the board of the foundation.
Me preocupa lo siguiente.
And this is my concern.
Por ahí por octubre, noviembre 2022,
Around
en el mundo se
October
aceleró la
2022,
inteligencia artificial.
the world was amazed at the arrival of artificial intelligence. There was an impact. In 1 year and a half, the scenario changed on how we can disseminate and create. On the road to Frankfurt, what are we going to develop?
Habilidades nuevas
New visualizations favoring what we want to take there by assuming that artificial intelligence is contributing with very important and new
y otras creaciones.
ideas,
Ustedes
with other type of creations, new ideas. You can think that we can make Neruda, Pablo Neruda, speak. Yes, we can. We saw that in September when All of a sudden, we saw a video where there was Victor Jara singing the verses of his last creation, composed some days ago before dying, and there was music generated under the logics of what his creativity was. Thus, an example enlighten us. We have seen actresses saying, okay, I didn't say that, I wasn't there. You see, so what I believe, and this is a question, but it's also a suggestion, and we need to make an effort in the road to Frankfurt, or Camino Frankfurt is an opportunity on how we can install this effort of place branding under the logic of the challenge of new scenarios. Artificial intelligence shows us the potential is big. Distance is not important anymore. What's important is how we can articulate those matters. I can make Garcia Lorca speak and talk to Neruda, Garcia Lorca and Franco Neruda having a conversation. I'm inventing things that we didn't have in the past, and today they are possible. And this is a to-do thing, I guess. It's question, suggestion, you can take it as both. Such an interesting point you have raised. And to be brief, because it's such a long conversation, because it's something new, something that it's in a very exclusive scope. It's not massive, it's on that direction. And one of the reflections is that public institutions are a little bit slower than technological progress. We have seen that with our sectorial laws. In the books law, the law does not recognize e-books, or the music laws. We never expected that in such a short amount of years formats were going to change. But I say that in our country we have had interactions with this new creative way, interesting ways, which without a doubt will position ourselves. An outstanding example is Javiera Mena's music, who launches one of their singles within an online game. In one launch, she, maybe I don't know the number exact, it was like 1 billion of views, not even possible even for Spotify. So we are under that line. Okay, and I'm going to give you two pieces of information. In April, between 27th and 30th, we'll host Mixur, which is one of the important. Chile is the host country. It won't be the Pan-American country, but will be our best, where precisely one of the central axes of the meeting will be the reflection around the new ways of creative and artistic production, such as artificial intelligence. In Chile, we have one of the technological revolution hubs for the most important creative agency placed or based in Movistar in the Parque O'Higgins. So you will be invited to Mixur. Important reflections will be made with a roadmap with clear visions, for example, to the road to Frankfurt. And in second place, let me say that we are always aiming to look at these new technologies to affect the copyright with intellectual property, where we should be aware of who is who, always by safeguarding connections, progress, but never going back when it comes to fundamental rights. That has been our line of work, and we will defend that for good. One last question. Somebody wants to say, to complement this. From a more boring side on what artificial intelligence means, it's important to highlight it has to do on how we can use technologies for the work we do from the softer or harder skills. And in this case, the question gives me the possibility to say what we are proud of. One, it was, well, although the function of investment attraction is being for decades, the agency per se outside Corfu or the foreign committee investment emerges with certain peculiarities, and they have to do what was done with the different entities and some other recommendations, but digital subjects, the incorporation, innovation to attract investment, detection, identification of prospects, which is a very difficult and specific and niche task, has already added or incorporated a marketing strategy element. When I say digital marketing, I'm not mentioning more followers or more likes. That has to do with positioning probably, and it's important to quantify that way. But with the conversions towards the investment portfolio, which is not the same of investment flow, but it has a project portfolio per country, per sectors, can grow at a certain degree, not only due to national or traditional production done by executives, as what Calas mentioned, now with the Public Works Minister promoting the infrastructure portfolio of his, but also with identification of digital buyer prospects. And that was a gamble with an agency built around that, which allowed us to address the pandemic in a more robust way, or probably not so in defense, to do business from home. That was our motto. But it allowed us to start with the project implementing in 2018. When we created the agency, we started with this, with identification between the new project portfolio, digital marketing. 20% of the portfolio is digital. That's translated in employment and also in investment. Then what I want to say with this, besides feeling very happy about that, we have made an effort to learn how to do that, and everything has been magical or wonderful or happy. We have trained the team. That's been inbound marketing work of very specific content, which are not only generic promotion, but also sectors, tax, legal subjects, things that are not only available, but it helps favor investments with innovative digital techniques. We can make it reach where we want to reach. It allows us to talk about what the state is usually behind incorporating technologies in their way of doing things and measuring. As public institutions, we do not measure what we do in a quantitative way, so we can incorporate today the technology. We can make that in a cost-effective manner, in a cheaper cost, to know if what we are doing has measurements goals according to what our own strategy or a global strategy as a brand is taking us to a place where we want to go. That was my compliment. Okay, let's go for the final question. My name is Javier Arellano. I represent Latin America, Power of Latin America. I just want to steal a minute from you. We have talked about instances like you or China a week. I represent a company like that that's done in Chile, but also what we can attract from China to Chile. And I just wanted to understand a bit. I was watching an interview to Xinhua from the Undersecretary, where they say that there's an important investment to bring Chinese tourists to Chile. Last year were like 20,000 Chinese tourists in our country, but the potential within our figures are 80 million. Then what I believe is how we can ourselves, we can contribute to all of you. How can we do something in favor of that? Because we have a know-how. And we obviously want to be willing in this private and public partnership to be able to work with you, offer you our knowledge. But I would like to know how you see this. It's a very fun strategy from the Undersecretary of South America, which is joint work with other countries. We are working with Encuentro. Then there's something that might be a joint work. Then I would like to know, what can you expect from us, or what do you think generally, how can we contribute for that? I'm going to use the floor now, because everything I have mentioned is impossible to do if it is not without public and private partnerships. We are also an advisory council. All the international marketing plan based on the update of the strategy done last year that was passed in the actions with the marketing, with an international marketing plan that is done with a private public partnership. It is impossible to do things if it is not like that, and we profoundly believe in that work. And last year, well, I was appointed in March last year, so in 8 months I was in all regions, precisely due to the same, to know the guilds, to listen to everyone, and continue with the previous work. So there is a relevant point there. And then, okay, we need more time to do everything we want to do. And I come from the coaching world, and I would say that explicitly, but we are too accustomed to do a judgment before asking the question. There is a bias or a judgment before, probably due to the mental model everyone has. Instead of saying, okay, Undersecretary, I want to talk to you because I want to make you an offer, and not saying this directly to you. I said in general terms. And I mentioned this because clearly, a long time ago, I want to talk to the Association of Fruit Exporters, and announced that. I didn't know it was Claudio because I knew him just because of wine subjects. But times is not enough to do everything we want. So what I mean with this, let's work together. Exports is the same. We want, but we do not necessarily need more resources to do more and to do better promotion. We need a better articulation. We need common agendas. We need common purposes. We need conviction of what we're doing towards the same. We have held some conversations with airlines to do joint campaigns. In the morning, we already had a meeting with Encuentro to see how we can work on Visit South America. I'm pretty convinced that we'll do a change as long as we can ask a question on how can I help versus you didn't invite me. Let's work changing the leaders of things. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone for your questions. And of course, thank you to each member of the panel. To the team Imagen de Chile, you will give you a sign of their appreciation for participating in this wonderful conversation where the joint work between Chile's image and other representatives, as the one we have here, shows that the joint work in the promotion of the country is the way to move on. We thank the Sport Minister, Jaime Pizarro, and the Secretary of Tourism, Verónica Pardo, and the Secretary of Culture, Noelia Salas, the President of the Food Export Council, Mr. Silvetti, the Pro Chile Director, Natalia Arcas, the Marketing Head of Invest Chile, Fabiola Saman, and of course, the Executive Director of Chile Image, Roxana Testa. Those who are giving these awards are our area directors who have worked hand in hand, side by side, to have a successful event. We are going to organize the stage to continue with the event so we can have our next international guest, Jacqueline Hill. And I like to remind you that you can participate and share in social networks the activity that's been developed during this morning, the 6th version of the Chile's image encounter with the hashtag Chile lo hacemos todos. Congratulations.
Sorry, we're going to take a picture with the minister because my familia supports Colo Colo. Sorry for that.
Gracias, ministro.
Thank you very
No
much,
puedo
Mr.
no
Minister.
hacer esto, me van a matar si no lo hago.
I had to do this.
Me ha pasado otras veces, así que les pido disculpas por este permiso
So I
que me he
apologize for
dado
this
a mí misma
special
en
treat
un
that I gave
rol
to myself
distinto.
in a
Bueno,
different role.
nuestra última
Well, our
exposición
last
viene de la mano
lecture
de una destacada
is led by a
profesional
very important
del mundo de la
professional from the
promoción del país y
promotion
directamente de Brasil.
world
Habla
and directly from
perfecto
Brazil.
español, tengo que
Speaks
decirlo,
perfect Spanish,
pero ella va a
but
preferir hacer
she
su presentación en
wants
inglés y
to
se siente más
do her
cómoda con ella, así
presentation
es que
in
les aviso
English.
desde ya
So I would like
que si
to
ustedes
tell you that if you
necesitan
need
traducción simultánea y
simultaneous
entregaron,
interpreting
los,
and,
digamos, los receptores,
and
gracias
please,
por la palabra,
now is the time to
por
use
favor,
your
pueden,
receivers,
solicitarlos
or you can
nuevamente.
request them once
Bueno,
again.
tiene más de 20 años
She's
de
got more than
experiencia
20
en
years of
políticas y
experience in
estrategia de negocios
politics and
internacionales.
business
Ha
strategy
desarrollado su
internationally.
carrera en países
She
como
has
Australia,
developed her
Estados
career in
Unidos,
Australia,
Francia,
United
Nueva
States,
Zelanda y
France, New
Sudáfrica.
Zealand, and South
Ha sido
Africa.
investigadora
She's been a
voluntaria,
researcher, volunteer
en
researcher
el Global
in the
Scanning
Global
Network
Scanning
de Copenhagen,
Network of Copenhagen,
Institute for Future
Institute for
Studies,
Future
No sé si
Studies,
es Scanning o Scanning. Bueno, asesora de políticas
consultant
en el
for
Ministerio de
policies
Asuntos Exteriores
in the
y
Foreign
Comercio de Nueva Zelanda y
Affairs
consultora
Ministry
de la
in New Zealand
UNESCO
and
para el
consultant
posicionamiento
for
del
the positioning
turismo
of tourism
en Brasil.
in
Se
Brazil.
me fue la página, pasa a veces con el iPad y aquí la encontré.
Now
Muy
I
bien.
found the
Ahí
website once again. There she is.
Decía que
I was saying that
es, además
also.
eso. Y eso es, vamos, consultora de la UNESCO
She's
para
a
el
consultant for
posicionamiento y
UNESCO for the
competitividad
position
del
and
turismo
competitivity
brasileño.
of the
Entonces,
Brazilian
damos la
tourism.
bienvenida a
So we would like to
Jacqueline
welcome to
Hill, directora
Jacqueline
internacional de
Hill,
marketing,
International
negocios y
Director of Marketing,
sustentabilidad
Business and
Embratur,
Sustainability of
agencia
Embratur,
brasileña de
Brazil
promoción
Agency of International
de turismo,
Promotion
cuya función
for Tourism,
principal es
which main
promover a
function is to
Brasil
promote
como
Brazil
destino
as a
turístico a nivel
touristic
internacional,
destination
destacando sus
internationally,
diversos atractivos
highlighting
culturales,
its different
naturales y
cultural,
recreativos.
natural,
En su
and
actual rol
recreative
está concentrada en posicionar a
resources.
Brasil en el
Now she's
mercado
concentrated
internacional,
to
planeando
position Brazil
reconstruir
in the
los
international
programas de
market,
promoción
to
para el
rebuild the
país,
promotion
basándose
programs for the
en
country
los
based
principios de
on the
sostenibilidad,
principles of
acciones
sustainability,
climáticas, innovación,
climate actions, innovation,
inteligencia
investigation,
de mercado y Big
market
Data.
intelligence,
Ya,
and
como
big
les dije, va a
data.
hacer en
As I said,
inglés
she's going
esta
to do her
exposición,
presentation in
pero
English,
su presentación
but
estará
her
en
presentation
español, así
will
que
be
sin
in
más,
Spanish.
te damos la
So without
bienvenida.
any other further ado, we would like to welcome Jacqueline.
Hola, ¿hablo con este? ¿Sí me oye? Ok. Hola, buenos días a todas y todos. Por primero es un placer enorme estar acá con ustedes. Muchas gracias a Chile por la invitación, a Rosana, también a Daniela y a mi querida amiga Verónica, la viceministra de Turismo de Chile. A todos ustedes, ministro, un placer inmenso. Yo me pido disculpas, pero prefiero hablar en inglés porque a veces me atrapo yo misma con palabras
Sometimes
que en
I
portugués
have
tienen
problems
un
with
sentido
words in
totalmente
Portuguese,
distinto en español, así que
words
no
having
quiero
a
hacer
different
esto
meaning in
hoy.
Spanish, so I don't want
Así
this
que,
to happen
me
today.
cambio para
So I'm going to
inglés,
switch
¿ok?
to English.
I feel safer here
Me
without
siento más
those
segura
words
sin
that can
esas
trap me
palabras que me
sometimes.
pueden atrapar a
Here we go.
veces.
Well, first
Aquí
of all,
vamos.
it's
Primero
really
que
an
nada,
honor,
es
to
un
talk
honor
about Brazil
conversar
with you
acerca de
all.
Brasil con todos
More than
ustedes,
anything, because I
más
learned
que
more
nada
with
porque
you
he
than,
aprendido con ustedes mucho
you
más
could
que
probably think.
lo que
I
ustedes
study a
puedan
lot
creer.
about
Yo he
Chile.
estudiado mucho
I'm a
acerca de
big fan of
Chile,
your country,
soy una
and
gran
that, of
fanática de
course,
su país
brings in a
y
lot of
eso
information to what we
nos
build
trae
and what
mucha
we are
información en lo que
currently
hemos
building that I am going to share. In terms of Brazil's brand, we understand currently we must work with it in a very deeper way than just marketing. We gotta go deeper in the roots and understand what's more than what I say. And I start with a question that Simon really provokes us when he makes it, which is for a country to be well perceived and to be well ranked, what does it take? You gotta be admirable, so you can, no, you gotta be, for you to be admired, you have to be admirable. That's it, and it's all about what you do, not what you say. Especially in current days that we know what we say can be easily unmatched if it's not the reality. We start by saying the Good Country Index positions Brazil at number 62, if I'm not wrong, Simon. The last index goes there somewhere, 62-ish, which is not good. It's not bad? Oh, thank you. You're kind. It's pretty bad. I mean, we sit in this place where we have, on the one hand, the numbers that places us as the 9th world economy, 2.1 trillion US dollars. That's a lot. On the other hand, that's so big and so diverse, sometimes we get lost there. And therefore, we can't really make our way up in the ranking of the Good Country Index, unless Simon quite sort of helps us. No. But given the diversity and the differences that exist between the Western Amazon area and the south of Brazil, or the 365 sunny days, beaches in the Northeast, it's so diverse. Sometimes it's good on the one hand, but it's hard to really find what's meaningful, what will make a difference, and how can we propose activities, initiatives, strategies, programs, engagement that we are therefore admirable. We know from research and historical situations that and the Good Country Index has been placing us within the best ranking that we managed to get. Brazil contributes to the world order. That is where we rank better in the index, around number 30. Others are down the line. Anyway, so that's then soft power we gotta use. So we understand we do contribute with the transformation for the better of global and regional order somehow. We also know Brazil has a long-standing history of environmental commitment, and there is also a leadership in renewable energies that doesn't date from yesterday. It goes back to the 70s and the 80s, including when we started with Iguazu Falls and what's happening now. We also know by the United Nations we are first in biodiversity. We have over 340 conservation units. That's over 30% of the territory with nature protection areas. We also have 92% of our energy out of renewable sources. We also understand we contribute somehow within our own territory and outside of it with the sustainable development. And here is, let's just recollect something that might be not very centerpiece within the recent years. However, Brazil has been a leader in the environmental climate debate historically. If we go back to Rio 1992 in Brazil, that's when the very first convention, International Convention on Climate, took place and was signed. That's where we start, and all the way to the COP30 that will take place in Brazil next year. I understand there is a break of 4 years-ish within that period, which is quite recent, but we are back on track within this leadership. We also understand culturally and population-wise, we are a superpower. We are a powerhouse of cultural creativity, cultural diversity, cultural potential to be stronger. We know we have over 300 ethnical groups. We speak over 270 different languages. I'm not sure if people would have that perception of how diverse we are. We have over 23 UNESCO heritage sites. We have the largest African descent population outside of Africa. That's super powerful. We also understand in Brazil religions coexist, and that's not just to say. There is a mass in the city of Salvador, which I advise people visiting the city to really have a look, just to understand how can a Catholic traditional church have a mass in which the priest walks in with the music of African descent religions, be hosted by Jewish representatives, have Muslim people within the set of the mass, that's in peace and that happens every week. Every week. So we also understand religions coexisting is powerful. We also understand about our social biodiversity and how much we must work with it in our favor. And how does that work for tourism? What I just said is historical information, nothing new. That has led us to create the very first tourism targeted brand for the country back in 2005. Following research, including from Ipsos Institute, that's a partner of Simon, we understood our perception met with the perception of international consumers, and this brand reflects how they saw us, that's back in 2004, 2005. So green stands for our nature, blue stands for our water, yellow stands for our sun, orange for our happiness and hospitality, red for fruits, but also parties and festivities, and also gastronomy. Let's just remember of the color of the fruits. A lot of them are very red. And the white in the middle stands for the religions. It's all connected, and it has become within those shapes that belong to Burle Marx, our world-famous landscape architect, that has become our very first brand 20 years ago. Very good. That was also part of the first international marketing plan Brazil developed, which was called the Aquarela Plan. And that stood until 2019, that story, that brand, that story, following that marketing plan from 2005. In 2019, however, that was discontinued and came on board this, whatever, Visit and Love Us, forget about it. Anyway, in 2023, that has been discontinued again, the 4 years period, because this one had no research, had no value proposition, it just replaced something for the sake of replacement. First thing we do in 2023, come back to the old values, come back to what we understand belong to the powerhouse of the country, bring back the Burle Marx curves, colors, internationally recognized Brazil with an S, not with a Z, and that's where we started again last year. However, we understand the world has changed, pandemic has changed, the internet has changed many things, and we are in 2023, 2024 in a very different place to where we were in 2005. We now have artificial intelligence. We now have all sorts of means to research and understand perception from consumers from any country or any place in this world. So we are also changing. And where do we stand now? It didn't take long for us to, thank God, and thanks to the team that puts a lot of effort to making this happen. We started gaining rankings and space again within the areas that we have competitiveness, as I mentioned before, and that has shown in a few rankings. So Forbes last year has placed us #1 for nature, then Wanderlust in the United Kingdom also awarded us Lonely Planet. It goes on and on and on the list. What do we know now? Data shows us, and research shows us, and social media analytical tools, which are many, including with artificial intelligence usage, shows we have to make a value proposition that's different to what we had in 2004. Very good. So where do we start now? First, with a diagnostic. This is a very recent research done with the use of artificial intelligence that shows in 2024, this is January 2024, within 11 countries, artificial intelligence telling us this is how Brazil is perceived. Beaches in the middle, Rio de Janeiro, sun, carnival, beautiful. It's nothing different to the historical perceptions we have brought. We know, however, this is too stereotype, and we got to get away from this because the consumers are also wanting different to this. We understand, also from research, the value proposition we offer and the meaningful message, therefore, to engage international travelers, are connected to something different and deeper to what it was in 2024. 2004, 2005. I cannot just say we coexist in terms of religion. I have to show that. They have to live that. How do they experience that? How is that a Catholic Mass in a super traditional Catholic church that all music are played in different pieces of the entire Mass with the priest leading it in such a different and diverse environment? What does an immersion in nature mean for my personal health? What does it mean for my well-being? It's good that you have all of that biodiversity. They're amazing. They're wonderful. Good for you. But what's in it for me? How do I make that a value proposition for my investment on my days off as for my well-being to improve? So that's where we stand, and that's how we started reshaping the work that we do from 2024 onwards. We understand we are sort of in this position of all these competitiveness advantages need to be transformed in something that's livable, something that is experienced. I want to be admirable because you can see this is true and you can feel it changes lives, it's transformative. We understand emotional, passions, connections, well-being, nature, immersion, all of that has been very much positioned in a different space to what it was. Is it an easy task? No. My boss is convinced it's not. The minister is convinced it's not. I'm convinced it's not. My team tells me every day it's not easy, and I tell them, go and do it. It's a great conversation. But we got to start somewhere. And where do we start now? This is the most recent research we have, January 2024 from Chile, in terms of how do Chileans perceive Brazil as a tourism destination. Good numbers, good perception. 80% show Brazil as something familiar. Good. 62% mentioned within this research sample they have visited Brazil, which is good. That means Brazil is well known within the Chilean society. And 85% would like to visit. That's the best number for me. That's pretty high. That means we got to work well in Chile, and then we shall very much have results if we do it right. However, what do Chileans know of Brazil? It goes back to that words cloud I showed. They know of beaches. They know of biodiversity as something like blur, cool. That's biodiversity, amazing. Carnival, who doesn't know about the parties in Carnival? Rio, São Paulo, and Búzios. What is this to do with 2024 meaningful travel? Very little. Let alone if we go to the iconic, Copacabana and the iconic Iguazu Falls. Tell me more. No, what's new? It's boring. It's not possible anymore for me to continue to work like that. So we have started with practical ways to change how we propose ourselves to international travelers, because that's, we believe, provoked by Simon, how we can be seen and lived in an admirable way. To start with, we understand we got to go deep. We got to go a lot deeper in what it means. I got to show life is within a diverse society. And there comes me, a white person, normal, super normal European descent, to talk to you. Is it easy to change? Of course not. Starting from our team. It's an exercise to put that in everything we do. Does my team show the diversity of the Brazilian society? No. No. Next month, I hope I will have an indigenous person working with a super nice co-car in the team. Has it been easy to do? No. But anyway, that's where we are moving towards. And this is just a simple way to materialize and give you an example of what this change started to show last week. We got to transform that in practical actions throughout our work as a promotion agency internationally for Brazil as an international tourism destination. And historically, we have had, I have a huge storage within the Brazilian Tourism Board of old corporate gifts. I hate all of them. They're ugly. They all have plastic. They all have perceptions of the past. So I said, that's where we are going to start. When we do international events, especially fairs, it's very common that we get given gifts all over the place, right? First thing, we've got to do right what we say. So zero waste strategy within our house, got to show in everything we do internationally. Sustainability, climate action commitment, got to show internationally. So first thing, we are only going to promote internationally. They step beyond sustainability in general terms. Regeneration is now our core piece. And we have replaced all of the corporate gifts for experiences in regenerative initiatives. And we launched it in Berlin last week. So in addition to giving a pen or a little notebook to our stakeholders, I started, and our team started inviting them to become tutors of coral reefs in Brazil. So they are given that invitation and therefore the certificate of adoption, and they all get given a little coral reef with a number and put in the system which follows that little coral reef while they are in the nursery, get regenerated for a year until they are stronger, have their feet back on track and can be taken back to nature where they belonged before they were broken by tourists. So that's how we want now to engage our stakeholders and therefore starting a movement in Brazil for our partners. And as Veronica mentioned, it's all about public and private sector partnership. We can no longer go anywhere separated, right? So this is a material example that I like very much because it starts the conversation. I understand we got to go a lot deeper, but it has already started a movement in Brazil. What do I mean by this? Those experiences that used to call them sustainable now have to show how sustainable they are and engage people in it. If not, it doesn't matter. Just keep on doing your word, keep doing your blog, and who cares? Probably nobody else, in addition to the person who writes that, possibly. So now, the idea is, let's engage people in our value proposition initiatives. That includes where we place our money. So we purchase those coral reefs. I give them money for finance conservation, and I engaged 100 German professionals to be part of that. So now I understand 100 professional Germans will be able to say they have a little coral reef in Brazil, and hopefully they will be more inclined to come to Brazil and visit that because that belongs to them for a year. And then they will be able to come and see how the reef regenerated. That's the first initiative. I bought coral reefs for you, by the way, Hosanna, Veronica, Daniela, Simon. You gotta have your reefs in Brazil too now. So I hope you come to see them and look after them for some time. And then we are gonna go on and invite people to own or to be the guardians of nests, of birds, of endangered species, which also have tourism as a way to finance their conservation. So the next one is Blue Parrot, for those who will be engaging with us in Paris for the Olympics within the Brazilian House. We are already going to develop the initiative around blue parrots, which is a very Brazilian species within the central area of Pantanal. So those people will be able to engage and help us finance the conservation of those birds. And there we will go on and on and on in the way that we engage stakeholders. So this just to show the very first piece that we recently elaborated in this new strategy way.
Mi viaje a Brasil ha sido inolvidable. He sentido sus aguas, toda su biodiversidad. Me he sumergido en su naturaleza. Una emoción indescriptible. He experimentado cada rincón, las maravillas de un lugar sostenible. He probado nuevos sabores, y me han recibido con la calidez de la gente feliz. He encontrado un país que celebra la diversidad. He conocido sus encantos y sus paisajes desde lo más profundo. He descubierto un Brasil espectacular.
Yeah, so very briefly in the movie, we already showed the turtles. So the turtles will be part of our Adopt a Turtle project. Then the blue parrots, as I mentioned, that safari experience was filmed in the farm where we do jaguar regeneration. So all the circle of investment and promotion now will go around tourism financing, conservation, and cultural prospects, of course, and cultural vibrancy. And the engagement of our stakeholders will also be connected to it so they can come to Brazil and see what does it really mean when we say we are committed to biodiversity conservation. So to finalize the conversation, we have just started this new route. We have a lot of things to adapt, but that's how we shall be going towards being more profound and bringing people on board to meaningful experiences that connect to what they told us they want to see and experience in Brazil. I hope we can develop this further within the next year, so in 2 years' time we can perhaps have results to show the paradigm has shifted, and I would like very much as one of the results to change that word's cloud very much. Don't want to see beaches and sun and carnival and Christ the Redeemer anymore for much longer. Those days are gone. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, to Jacqueline,
De esta interesante proyección del trabajo
for
que
the
están haciendo en
interesting
Brasil,
projection
y
of the
sin
work they
duda
are doing in
es
Brazil, and without doubt,
forma, un aporte
it's
que nos
a
permita
contribution
enriquecer la
allowing
estrategia
us
que
to
estamos
enrich the
impulsando en
strategy
Chile.
we are
Para
launching
terminar este
in Chile.
increíble encuentro,
To
queremos
conclude
revelarles
this
una última
wonderful session,
sorpresa,
we'd
que es
like
como
to show you a
nuestra guinda de la
surprise,
torta.
which is the
Y como
cherry
ya
of the
se ha dicho,
pie.
desde el año
And it's been
2023,
said,
el
as of
equipo de la Fundación
2023,
Imagen de
the
Chile ha
Foundation
trabajado
of
en conjunto con
Imagen de
diferentes
Chile team
actores,
has worked jointly
tanto
with different
público como
stakeholders from the
privado,
private and
en la construcción de un marco
public
del
sector in the
relato de
construction
Chile,
of the
sustentado en los
Chile's
ejes
story,
democracia,
sustaining the access to
sustentabilidad y
democracy,
diversidad,
advocacy,
que la
sustainability, and
directora ejecutiva
diversity,
Rosana
whose
Dresner
director,
nos ha
Rosana Idris, has
presentado en el
presented to
encuentro
us
anterior. Y
in the prior
justamente es en el
meeting.
marco de
And
esta
precisely
sexta
under the
versión
framework of
que es
this
que
sixth
nosotros
version
queremos
is where we
mostrar lo
want
que se
to
ha
show
plasmado en
what
diversas
has been
actividades
printed
internacionales de nuestro país
in
durante
different
el
international
2023
activities during
y
2023 in the
transformarlo de
rest of the
manera
world,
muy creciente, en
transforming
forma
this
unificada,
in
chilena,
a
de salir al
unified and
mundo.
Chilean
Hoy
way,
la Fundación
how
está
to be shown in the
lanzando
world.
ese
The
macro
Foundation is
relato
launching that
transformado en
macro
campaña,
account
cuyo pintapié inicial les damos a
transformed into
continuación. Así
campaign,
que, sin más con ustedes,
the one we are
la
kicking off today,
campaña
and
We
without
Care.
further ado, the campaign We Care.
¿Alguna vez te has preguntado
Have
qué
you
se
ever
puede ver acá,
wondered what you can
donde
see here,
comienza el mundo?
where the world starts?
Donde comienza el mundo se
Where
puede
the
ver
world starts,
el futuro.
you can see the future.
Sueños,
Dreams, visions,
certezas,
surprises, energy.
la fuerza de nuestra gente,
The power of our people,
que crece,
those who believe, who grow.
donde comienza el mundo tomamos
Where the world
desafíos y
starts, we take
oportunidades
challenges and
y nos
opportunities,
hacemos cargo.
and we take charge.
Sabemos que esto es solo el comienzo.
We know that this is just the
que desde
beginning,
Chile
that
podemos ver
from
el futuro
Chile we can see the
y nos
future,
importa.
and we care.
Wow, esto sí que merece un gran aplauso.
This deserves a big round of applause.
Y
And with this exciting moment, we are concluding this session in this fixed version of the meeting Imagen de Chile, where we are all aware that construction, growth, consolidation of the country image depends on each one of us, public sectors, private sectors, citizens, entrepreneurs, everyone making of this a serious and trustworthy country before the eyes of the world. And to finish, please, you are invited to a cocktail. Thank you very much for joining us and have a wonderful afternoon.
Con sus manitos moradas, con la pelota de trapo, con el gato y con el perro, el caballo lo miraba. En el agua de sus ojos se bañaba el verde claro, gateaba su corte